Hey guys, no, how do these normally start? It's been a while.
Usually like that.
Yeah, it always was this lame, Tarke. Yes. He's
It
like,
seems like a normal start. Yeah.
he's
Sorry.
self-conscious.
I
He's become
forgot.
aware.
So you become self-aware mid-sentence during your intro. Oh my god,
Tarke
self-awareness.
suddenly remembering the
am
one
I?
time he told Chris Wilson to fuck off. It's like, oh my
Shit,
god.
This is what we do?
What have I done?
Okay, just quick before I do start, I saw a clip. I can't remember what the name of the YouTube channel. It's like Vida or something. There are a bunch of guys in New Zealand who like make little skits about video games, and one of it was a streamer playing a stealth game, and it's about him like, okay guys, you gotta be really sneaky, and then he keeps thanking people for subs and that's like the skit. But now, because I've seen that, whenever I thank anyone for a sub or donation, I think of the cringe streamer reacting to sub thing, and it's kind of ruined that for me. But anyway. Hey guys, Tarke here, and welcome to Baeclast. It's been our first episode in quite a while, and today we're going to do things a little bit different. We will be talking about Path of Exile. We will be talking about a lot of variety stuff as well. So, we'll start off with everyone's favorite question. Raiz, what have you been up to?
I've been doing some Minecraft dungeons, but also I've been playing PoE, and I am very upset. I have been, in fact, lied to, but I don't feel as bad as I think some of the people that might be realizing that their build is ruined right now. So you know how when they announced Stormbind, clearly the best skill in the entire game, everywhere it said that it's 100% more damage per stage. It did that in the announcement, so it was on the wiki, so it's in POB. The POB calculations are based off of that, all of it. So what some people were doing was scaling with decay, and I was like, oh, that's a cool idea. Let me try it. Turns out that's not how the gem was implemented. They changed it, and it, even though everywhere it says that it's more with hits and ailments, which decay is not. So I feel very sorry for the people that somehow haven't noticed that they've been literally using the worst skill ever to prog decay.
I was gonna ask, how do you not tell up to a certain point?
Yeah, it's like 300% more damage is kind of a big deal. Like, how do you not? I don't know. Maybe they just assumed that decay is just that shit. But instead, I went with the whole Stormburst setup where you scale with duration because it's 75% of the skill damage per every 0.4 second duration remaining. And because you have the cluster jewels now, you can get like 600% increased duration. So I think I didn't do too much math on it because it was all SSF and everything. I might be moving to Trade League though because it needs way too many cluster jewels. It's something like 750% more damage on decay. So maybe it'll be playable. I'm expecting it to do like about 2 million, maybe with really good gear, about 3 million DPS on like Awakener, which is pretty good because you just like click it once and it's like a really smooth click, even though Stormburst is really terrible. It's like you click it once and it's like a minute dot ticking for, 3 million damage. So it's very consistent damage. And it's always applied because people are like, oh, I have 50 million damage. But if I stand for 1 second, I instantly die. I can't ever DPS, right? So the uptime is really good. So I like that a lot. I don't know. We'll see how it works out. And other than that, Minecraft dungeons are cool. Yes.
Quick question, didn't you play like Decay Arc or something recently, Octavian? What was the damage on that like?
Decay Stormbrand, it's not as good as what Stormburst can push. There's not as much of a scaler. Like Stormbrand has the 120 something % more damage to the branded target, and that's pretty much it. You don't have any way of like scaling that. So I could push like 1 point something million DPS with that, which felt fine. I mean, I didn't really take that into high tier maps. I just used it to speed run. I think it was T9 Tropical Islands. I was seeing how many simulacrum splinters I could get out of them. This is a build I played for like 3 days. It was decently fun.
Damn, maybe I can get more damage than 1 million off of 120.
I mean, that was like softcore trade league, like optimized, not really quite optimized, but rather good gear, like a plus gem stat with malevolence effect and stuff.
Is it total damage or just the decay itself?
That was the decay itself. I think it was 900 something thousand unless certain buffs are up, and then 1 point something million with certain buffs up. I forget exactly.
Damn. Okay. I'm starting to believe in my build.
Yeah, no, I think you can, like 2-3 million. Give me 2 or 3 million consistent DPS any day over like spiky 10 or 12 million. It's so much better, in my opinion.
I think so too. And what's cool about it is that because of like you don't really have a whole lot of ways of scaling like chaos multi-dot type of shit right now. So you know how you run into single target issues? You can just switch the gems around for like something like Essence Drain and you can boss with it. So if it actually works as a concept, I think it could be pretty cool that way. It's just like, well, let's do Awakener. I'm just going to switch. And I'm pretty sure it persists through a lot of the phases. Like if you have the duration. So some of the bosses
Really?
that I've killed, it would like just stay on the boss, which is really nice. Like Daresso, for instance, I just dotted him once for like a full minute and he would just like tick down, you know, then he would have the next phase and he would just keep ticking. So you just didn't even need to hit him.
Because
So
decay
but-
base duration is pretty ridiculous. It's like the highest duration.
it's 8 seconds. Yeah.
Basic dot, right?
Yep. It's 8 seconds.
Have you tried testing it on bosses that properly go invulnerable? Because you can still like hit Daresso, so I feel like he wouldn't wipe it. But-
Right. Some of the bosses definitely keep the dots because I've already had that experience with Volark with like increased ignite duration and stuff like that. But I don't really remember a whole lot of them. In the story, it was very weird. Like Kitava would keep it, but then, for instance, the passive point boss, the one that spawns the tornadoes, wouldn't. When she would go like into the
like
like
the
invisible
mist and-
phase?
yeah.
Oh, Deshret.
No.
Yeah.
The shred.
Is that not her name?
No.
The shred is
the
the
feather
one.
quest?
Wait, is it? That's the shred? Oh,
I
shit.
thought I might have the name wrong. I'm not a big lore buff.
No, isn't Deshret? No, that's
The
Gurakan.
passive in the
Deshret.
mines.
Wait, no, Gurakan's the
Yeah.
bear. No, it's Deshret is the spirit we free in the mines.
Gorkul is the yeah, Tenford is the spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Not a lore buff.
But while you look, that is
The one that
thing
phase runs. See, I know the mechanic.
But that's
yeah, but
one
like
thing.
you would think there it would work, but it doesn't. So I don't know. It's weird. Sorry, Tarke.
That's okay. But that's one thing. So this league, I've been doing this thing with like Patreon where we're doing like build reviews. And at the start, it started as people sending me like their wacky builds. And then it's just kind of been people sending me their like, this is my Warcry build. Look how big my penis is. They're just like POB numbers. And I got sent quite an interesting one recently. And it was a Glacial Hammer Warcry Berserker. And he was playing it in hardcore. And the numbers all looked really good. But he only had like 5k life. And you're getting these guys who are like, oh, I need to maintain 10 million. I can't go beneath 10 million POB. And I'm like, I mean, you could drop, like, to say only 8 million. I know you'd lose 2 whole million damage. But then you'd gain enough life that you could actually attack the enemy. And they're like, yeah, but I need to have the 10 million Path of Building, otherwise I've got a bad build. And you're like,
Damn.
I think if you, with like big buffs down, maybe with flasks down, with conditionals down, if you, in that pessimistic situation, have like 1.5 to 2.5 million Shaper DPS, you have enough damage. I don't, unless you're doing like T19s with Delirium or something, you know, unless you're really pushing the envelope or doing Delve like 700 plus. I don't think you really need more than that.
I mean, just like take the whole 50% shocked thing, you know? Just like
Get the
they're
numbers
like,
back.
but I can't shock, but I'm like 10 million though.
Mhm.
Eh? And he's like, aha, you're right. That's true. There you go, fixed.
Why not cluster jewel and 60% shock?
There you go. Why not 160 passive points on the skill tree? Hmm? That's a
point.
good one too.
Since you mentioned that, I was just curious what you guys have of the viewpoint that we've been seeing quite a lot of we need more passive points because of cluster jewels. Now that we've had a league of cluster jewels, do you think we need passive points, or maybe do people need to learn how to change their builds to adapt to the power of cluster jewels, possibly?
I like the tension in a build that the cluster jewels cause. Like, I
Yeah.
like how strained I am for every level passive point this league. It also makes me more incentivized to like push to 94 or 5 with a build that I might have otherwise dropped at 91.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree. It's like you guys are getting all this power creep, and you still want like, wait, but it doesn't. The numbers don't fit. Just get our voices, dude. No problem. Then everything fits. Easy.
I
So
think we need less passive points.
really,
But-
wow.
One
Out
less
of
passive
interest, what do you think would be the minimum amount of points that would be acceptable for a like completed build these days?
I mean, realistically, you could adjust it pretty majorly. Like, they could take 20 points off us, and we would still be able to make characters that would be fine. Just our expectations would have to shift a little bit.
I think it depends heavily on context. I think I can do a lot more in a hardcore setting on the left-hand side of the tree with certain certain skills than I can on the right-hand side of the tree in a
Yeah.
hardcore setting. Now, if we're talking, you don't care about dying every now and again, it frees it up a lot. But yeah, there's certainly like, I don't know, if I'm playing the Chieftain Cremation build that was popular last league, I could chop 15 points off that. I'd still probably have over 6.5 or 7k life and Chieftain layers of defense and stuff. It'd be fine. You wouldn't have to lose a single damage wheel. You have so many life points assigned, you just chop a few off.
He thinks cremation chieftains pick up damage. Lol.
Exactly.
What
They
damage?
could give us 60 passives, and we would just make builds that look like 2013 builds. So we'd all just rock EK and get no damage
reflexes.
nodes. And yeah, pick up iron reflexes, because for 2 passives, that's pretty good value. And it would look just like 2013 PoE again.
You should have played the China race, Ziggy. That felt really 2000. Really felt 2013 PoE.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I only caught a little bit of that. Why is that?
It was very enjoyable. I loved it.
What did they do with it? Was there like modifiers or something? I only caught a little bit of it.
Every single one, pretty much, except for the no stash, no vendor. So there was like more monster life, turbo, extra proj, extra damage, minus res.
200 ping. So very.
No,
The desync was very reminiscent of old PoE.
I could not have handled that.
Actually, funny enough, it actually was less. Even with 200 ping, they've done a really good job with predictive. The desync was significantly more manageable than what it was in old PoE. So,
you didn't have any of
It was a
that.
lot better.
Huh, I haven't seen many monsters recently then teleport 4 rooms down and just be dead.
No.
Well, that's the thing. There was some weird behavior on the China realm. Like, for instance, I don't know, maybe this is normal in the current game as well. It's just been a really long time since I've played on high ping or even predictive. But like sometimes if you were to OOS, it would like break a boss's animation. So you know how Brutus always desynced? Here, if you OOS for that split second immediately after, you know exactly where Brutus is. But unfortunately, he just like T-poses on you for like 2 seconds. So it looks like he's just standing there, but he's doing shit. So you have absolutely no idea what's going on. It's just blind. Same for like Izaro, would just constantly teleport everywhere. I don't know. If people really play like that, it's kind of rough.
It reminds me how Val, like the most static boss in the game, used to be really desyncy and would teleport and slam you. Even though it's like a boss that literally stands still. And it's like, how? How did you move across the screen?
There was
Or
nothing
Osakari.
scarier when you used to see that thing walk. That's when you're like,
Yep.
oh no, something's gone wrong.
That's
Right, because old Vol was not supposed to walk like at all, and it was just like walking around, just like, dude, what are you doing? Yeah, Osakari was the champion in that too. It was one of the invasion bosses, the big skeleton guy. Like, he just walks around and slams, and for some reason, somehow, this like basic attack mob would just teleport multiple screens to just get to people. Really weird.
Classic.
I wanted to talk about the whole China client stuff, but before we get into that, who played in China? It was Raiz, Ziggy, Octavian?
I didn't play.
Oh, okay.
Not me.
Why didn't you play out of interest, Ziggy?
My shoulder.
Oh, how's that been?
Bust the shoulder.
It's been really annoying being like limited to what I could actually do. I'm seeing a physio now. I've been there twice. I have like a routine I'm doing. I tried PoE again like a few days before the China race, and I immediately felt that it was getting worse again. So I just can't play PoE. PoE is just from all the games I play, it's really the worst in terms of like straining your shoulder, like it's just straining you just overall, hands, shoulder, everything. So
Well,
it's
fortunately for your knowledge, the Chinese client does have a built-in Flask macro.
that doesn't do anything for me.
Damn it.
Because the thing
How
is
about
that
Fernando? Fernando would do all the things.
Wait, who's that?
He just runs around and picks up loot for you.
His loot pad, I think he named it.
Oh,
Yeah, I would show Fernando. That really helped me.
I mean, if it was, I honestly at this point, I wouldn't even mind something like that, something automated, it's anything. If they insist on having the same level of just, if they insist on having this much stuff added all the time of small crap we need to pick, I would take a loot pad at this point.
We
I'd rather
actually
not
had
see the
it
small
for
crap.
a bit. I can't remember what league it was, but for the start of the league, pets were actually picking up currency.
I think it was last league.
Well, it might have been.
Memories.
I remember being really confused because I said from the was like, did that scroll just get picked up by my pet chat? And there was like this 30 minutes of it wasn't always working, but sometimes it would like look like it was picking up stuff, and then they patched it after like a couple of hours.
Oh, oopsie.
I think one thing I would love would actually be, because the thing that really messed up my shoulder to begin with, because the first thing that did it was the race to 100. Like once I would like around on my second reroll, once I hit 99, I was like, it was just, I had been playing too many hours. I've been playing I had really bad posture, but. So yeah, that was the first thing. But the second thing was cycloning for like 2 days straight in simulacrums. You're holding down one button. So a toggle button to like, oh, I'm cycloning now, so you don't have to hold would actually be insane.
Welcome to China.
Do they have that?
Really?
No, but they could.
We could
have
for once be in front. Right?
They are very much all about the feedback from what I've seen. So, and they have very strict like anti-RSI stuff. So I think if you preached it long enough, I think they would just straight up implement it. Honestly, I would not be surprised. They have a goddamn Flask macro built in. They have pets picking up shit. I'm so happy about that, man. Because I've been preaching the whole like pet picking up basic currency for like ever, and then people were super opposed to it. So I was like, man,
Super opposed to what?
To the pets picking up the currency, like smaller currencies. I was like, man, am I the retard? Now that I've played it, nah, fuck them. They're the retards.
No.
I'm a genius. This pet stuff, it's amazing. We need it, 100%. No doubt.
I think if I was to point at something, I think we need better pickup radius and longer pickup range, and we need like where you pick up like if you want one thing, you pick up like all of the same type and stuff.
Yes.
Smart loot and just more range. I don't know why everything has to be straight under your foot in PoE.
That's
the worst thing.
That's the thing about the pet too, that it doesn't, because it works like a normal pet. So you know how your pets get stuck and they don't like, sometimes they're just gonna sit. So sometimes you would just like sit next to a piece of currency, just not pick it up for like 15-20 seconds straight. I'm just like, dog, it was kind of annoying, but like it worked in that way where it wouldn't work 100% of the time. But what was extra cool is that when you had the pet out, you could just run over currency without clicking it, and it would be picked up by you every time.
That said, really don't want the implementation that was on the Chinese server. It's incredibly price gouging.
Oh, right.
It was $150 equivalent, I think, for a permanent loot pet, and you could rent one for, I think, either $25 or $35 a league.
Yeah.
Quality of life should never come at at least I think that kind of quality of life should never come as like with a price point. That's something. The game actually just feeling nice to play the game should just feel nice to play. There shouldn't be a price point to having a good experience in PoE.
I don't think it was that much. I think it was like $5 per month, from what I remember.
I did not do the conversions myself. I was told by folks in my chat. So I might have misinformation there, but either way, I don't really want a rented pet or a paid one, and I don't think there would be an implemented one that isn't paid. Like,
Okay,
I don't
well,
know. I don't think that would get implemented for free. I just don't.
okay, so two questions on that then. One, do you think it's worse than stash tabs? If we're looking at pay to win mechanics, what's worse? What's higher quality of life? What more enables you to play the game? A pet that picks up wisdom scrolls or stash tabs? And
It depends
especially
on where you
premium
draw the
one.
line on the pet in terms of currency. Because if you like, if
The
it's
most
the
ad-
Chinese clan, if like I remember it would pick up basically anything under a chaos except for a few weird exceptions like silver coins.
Or
But
alchemies.
yeah, and it picked up Alex from what I remember.
Fusings. Alchemies, no.
Oh, okay. I might have had that backwards. I thought it didn't pick up fusings, but either way, you know, if it's picking up basically the majority of currencies that are dropping in a map, because like most currencies are going to be under that amount, then yeah, I think that's more powerful than stash tabs, than purchasable stash tab space.
I mean,
Mm.
I
I
think.
think
Oh, go on.
with the stash, there's like you accumulate it. Once you have the set you need, it's kind of like redundant to get more. There's very little extra return on that. If you're talking about a one-time purchase for a pet, I mean that becomes like a mandatory thing from the very.
But
and
you
I
could
even
argue
feel
that
from the
stashes are a
get-go.
one-time purchase.
Yeah, I would say so.
I want to see an expansion of the basic stash set, which I also don't think is going to happen. But I'd love to see like a limited currency tab that can hold like 100 of each currency or something for newer players. I feel like that would be fine. Like I would like to shorten that gap too.
I think the thing, because this veers very closely into, like, it's a big discussion with most AAA games now, is designing problems than selling solutions, and that's the thing that you kind of need to think about. And it's slightly different with Path of Exile because it's a game that's existed for so long and is constantly evolving to like when a brand new game comes out, and it's like we've designed this to be super grindy, but then we'll sell you an XP potion. I do think that we need a loot rework and improvements. The problem is GGG is the kind of company who say we won't change anything until we do the loot rework. And if you're like, that's bullshit, Tarke,
Right.
Shocked Ground is always my go-to example, where it's like Shocked Ground, Burning Ground ruined machines for so many years, and they refused to just turn it off when they could because they would rather fix the problem than disable the problem. So, you know.
And this is something as well that I don't think it's correct to take like a hard line stance on. You know, like when you attack an argument saying, "Oh, well, you're against this, shouldn't you also be against that?" I think it is a like sliding scale, and there's a certain amount of power that like definitely stash tabs are power. Stash tabs are something you can buy that makes the game easier for you in the long term. I had a lesson in that recently playing on the Chinese server with like literally 50 fewer stash tabs or something. But yeah, there's an amount of convenience and minor power that I guess I'm okay with people purchasing. But I draw the line at where those loot pets were.
Okay.
As to why I do that, it's hard to explain because it's something that's fairly subjective.
I get that because it keeps scaling too, right? It's like you get this thing, then we get this thing, then we get this thing. So I totally understand that. But on the notion of like the price point, the more I saw it, I didn't even see that there was a permanent pet, which is totally on me. But the more I saw it, the more I really enjoyed the idea of like this form of quality of life being in a way subscription based. Because in the past, GGG has stated that stash tabs were like by far their biggest currency generator. And obviously, if the company has more money, they're the type of company to put that money back into the game, right? So if you have a pet that everybody, let's say, buys for like a league for, for a league for like 5, 10, 15 bucks, which is even 15 would be, 1/3 of the price of a subscription of any other game. And it's not mandatory because, again, it only picks up minor currencies. Couldn't you make the argument that that money going towards development would also improve the game overall? Not just
You could make that argument, but they get more money from loot boxes than they ever got from stash tabs. So
Oh,
Could we
really?
then also
They-
make
they,
the
I
they've,
argument
they've never
that-
publicly
even know, I'm
they've
surprised.
never publicly announced that like we get most of our money from loot boxes, but they get most of their money from loot boxes. Let's be real. If you look at any game that's had them,
It makes sense.
yeah. It's like.
I think when they talked about that, that was pre-loot boxes.
So-
and they said the whole.
I don't know. I want to buy a thing and own it. Subscription-based stuff has never sat well with me. It's one of the reasons why I didn't end up playing World of Warcraft. I just don't like
Doesn't-
subscription-based services.
That sort of
But,
MTX
okay.
style doesn't sit well with our market in general, so I don't think it will get implemented just for that reason alone. That's just like a market-based
Really?
decision for China, I think. Yeah, for like a subscription pet for pickup stuff. I don't think they would do that here.
I'm
Yeah.
so surprised about that. Well, no, I totally get that, but I'm so surprised that like the model of subscriptions it doesn't sit well because like even Dota is like a great example. Obviously, it's a completely different game, but like when the compendium comes out, people fucking everybody buys it. Like people just buy it, and it's pretty much a subscription. Same for like Dota Plus and all this stuff, because in a way, gating your gameplay behind a paywall ensures that you're having to deal with less of a angry community. So I think if you do have even $5 on the line, people behave very differently based off of that. Like those $5 make a big difference for how people treat others in video games, especially if you know that there's like an enforceable ban system and all this sort of stuff. So
I don't think it's
just because of that would be
subscriptions.
cool.
I don't think it was subscriptions so much as temp MTXs. So like this
Yeah.
is an MTX that's temporary and that you lose after a set amount of time. I don't think
Mm.
our market has much experience with that, let alone.
I
much
think
acceptance
it's
of that
also
idea.
how they market it. Like if they marketed a battle pass, because Chris has spoken for
Yeah.
about they've wanted to do a battle pass. If like, oh, we're going to introduce a new battle pass where you get like a temporary armor set or an armor set, and then like each league will have a different themed loot pet. But like that's not where like loot pets come from. Then that's the way they could do it, and people would probably be into it. Because all companies now are like really trying to work out how they can like fit battle pass into their games, because it's good money.
Mm.
I think one thing that I could see them doing, and if I like worked at their marketing, this is probably how I would do it. Because I don't know if they could sell loot pets as nothing off the bat. Make a really shit pet that you get for killing Katava. Like an awful pet. A pet so bad that you just want to replace it with any other pet. And then
Aesthetically.
yeah, aesthetically, it's just like, ugh. Like, it's fine, but you're like, and that way everyone gets it, but you're like, oh, well, there's a pet on sale, so I'll just, like, spend, like, $2-3, get a cool pet, or there's a new pet in the supporter pack, maybe I'll get the supporter pet, and, you can't do it like that way.
So the way to make it okay is by tricking people.
No, you give everyone... You give everyone.
No, you give everyone
option.
shit. Yeah, but
No,
it's
but
not,
the
it's
problem
not an
is
option, though.
Noogie, is that there's no base pets. Like you don't
think
get
he means
pets for free. So if they were to implement, we'll have loot pets, then it's technically a paid feature if you haven't already bought a pet. So they have to give everyone a
Right.
pet. So if they suddenly
But
gave no, let me
giving-
just quickly. If they suddenly gave everyone like a really cool looking pet, you wouldn't be incentivized to buy more. So if they gave someone like just a very boring looking, not like ugly, but just like a boring looking like rower, then you'd be like, oh, that's cool. But actually, I want to go buy a fire chicken because the fire chicken looks cool in my fire
Just the
set.
skin.
Yeah, because you're just
Make
buying
it
the
a
skin.
skin.
of
Open,
it.
pick it up, and then it's a skin.
Because they can't add loot pets for free without giving everyone a free pet. So they have to give everyone a pet. So you don't give people the
Okay,
coolest pet that's
sure.
ever existed, right? No, you get a fucking bunny rabbit. You know what I mean?
Right, okay, sure.
Like that's
Oh,
how
you have
that's how every video game works, which has MTX. It's kind of like if you want the really cool shit, it's annoying. I'd rather it was just in the base game. But if you want the really cool flashy shit, you go in the store. If you want the celestial
to
pet,
say,
you go
though,
to the store.
I find it really interesting that people are completely okay with loot boxes,
People
but then
aren't.
screaming at the
No.
idea of like a pet that has a cost to it. Like either we are like okay, because the thing is, right? Like we can argue all we want about whether or not a loot pet should be in the game as a whole, but then the whole monetary side of it, and then like saying, okay, but loot boxes are there to make money, so that's okay, but we can't have something that improves our gameplay, but then also makes money.
But then that's the thing. People, because it's gambling, which is loot boxes, versus pay to win, which is a pet, right? But then, which is like two different things. But then the argument that people make is that, well, first of all, people aren't okay with loot boxes. I don't think, like, many people have a problem, but they don't have a problem because it like modifies their gameplay. It's because of the gambling issue. But then for the pets, yeah, the fact that it's pay to win,
No, but like,
I think they overstate it. Honestly,
I mean, I do think if it's a recurring thing that you have to keep paying for, so you're like paying for the game again and again and again and again. I see that point, right? It's like it's why we're okay with stash tabs, because once you kind of have your setup, you have your setup, and then you can customize further as they add some more things. But then it's because GDG added more features.
Okay, I'll say this to you, Nugu. If they introduced a pet that would pick up all loot under a chaos, would you feel like you should buy it?
Yes, of course.
We would all buy it.
Yes, of course.
And if someone was playing PoE, and you're like, okay, so what do I need to own? Because people will say, like, what stashes do I need? You're like, you need a currency tab, you need a map tab, maybe a fragment tab, and then some quads or something. And you'd be like,
you need
the pet.
The unique tab.
You need the pet.
And you need the pet the pet is like the first thing you get because it picks everything up for you. So there's no denying. Like the thing is, I don't even like. Well,
not
okay.
everything. Just so because like I think
it basically generates your currency regardless of what you like. It does, right? Because it picks up things you wouldn't like. It gives you time and picks up things.
Yeah, but it's like wisdom scrolls. It generates like over the course of 10 hours, it's gonna generate like 60 alterations through wisdom and portal scrolls. Like that's what you're getting pretty much. Like I don't think that's huge, but it's definitely huge in terms of not having to click 20 wisdom scrolls in a map, because some people do that, or 5 blacksmiths or 10 transmutes. Yeah,
I think the question when it comes to like putting a price point on something like that in terms of generating something that has monetary value is, do we want the game to either be financed through loot boxes or loot pets? And I think the loot pet idea, like more of a sits with me way better than loot boxes. If you want to talk about how you create, how the company makes money, right? So that on its own, I don't think that loot pets is the way to go, though. I think the game should have an overhaul on loot entirely.
I agree with your sentiment, and if they said to me like, okay, Tarke, for whatever reason we've decided you're in charge of this decision, we either keep loot boxes or we introduce loot pets, I'd always say I'd rather the loot pets. Most people would rather get rid of gambling, but it would still be the introduction of the truly pay-to-win feature. It would be the first, because you can argue with stash tabs, you can make more accounts. I used to say that a lot. That would be the first truly pay-to-win thing they added. So I think that if they were to do it, which they probably will at some point, just make it skin. Give everyone a free pet and just make it skin.
They don't even play like that though. Like the pets, they don't they do not modify the way you play the game in terms of like what you pick up and what you don't. You don't pick up portals, which you shouldn't anyway. You don't pick up wisdoms, which you shouldn't anyway. Like the tiny currencies. If you see an alchemy, you're gonna run to that bitch. It's not like the pet's gonna magically pick it up. It won't.
People spend a lot of time. I've also said this recently on stream. I don't think we need portal scrolls anymore. I don't think they actually add anything compelling to the game.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
You can make an argument for wisdom scrolls because in the early game with nothing, like start of league, there is that like, ooh, do I ID this rare or something else? For a brief time, there's a reason to have wisdoms, but there is honestly no genuine enjoyment that comes out of the portal scrolls, except for maybe maybe once or twice a league. Shit, I didn't put portals in my inventory. Press Alt, run around the map looking for it, or you just log out. I genuinely don't think portals add anything of value to the game.
The only time, okay, so there's one point where they do. And it's in the very early game when you start experimenting with what's it called? And this is for like a niche. Like most people will like outgrow that small niche very fast to where it doesn't matter at all. But like look at racing, for instance, right? With picking up the portal scroll and all
if
that.
You're like
and
in a group
doing
and
the
do split pushes and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. I mean, there is value in that at an early, but it's something that quickly as you enter, like the moment you're in maps, that whole thing is done. It's something that's present for the first like 10 to. I mean, if you're a really new, or if you're a new player, I don't know how long people take these days to complete their full like 20 hours or whatever. I mean, at that point, maybe more. I don't know, but. At that point, you end up with like it's kind of a redundant currency that doesn't really hold anything other than like a nuisance that you need
See,
to.
I
work
feel like
with.
the newer players get even more affected because, like, if you're an experienced player and let's say you take 10 hours to get into maps, which I would say is pretty good for an experienced player, you're entering maps with 40, 50 portal scrolls in your stash.
Mhm.
If you're a new player and you're taking 30 hours to get to maps, you're gonna have like 2,000 of those bitches in your stash
Probably, yeah.
and like 10 alchemy orbs, you know?
Right.
Like, you don't need to put anybody through that. Like, holy moly, there's just no way.
So a general reduction in loot. I mean, one thing you could do is cut out portal scrolls, but you could reduce it in many other ways as well. Would probably be a better option than a loot pet.
I think
don't-
it should just
No,
be a
no
hotkey
one's
for
gonna
portals.
argue that we don't need a loot rework. GGG will never argue. Like, we all know we need a loot rework.
Well, the thing is, this is all theoretical because none of it is gonna like. There's not gonna be a loot pad. There's not like the
Yeah,
rework
you
might
know,
happen. You
The
know,
loot
somewhere
better,
down
yeah,
the
I don't
line.
think so.
I don't think there's any way it's gonna happen. But like, I'm
No.
so surprised by you, Octavian, because you played it like.
I-
Didn't you? I would think that you would be the most on like the side because, like, when you saw it fusing, it's not like it would pick its. You would run to the fusings, and sometimes the pet would pick it up before you. Sometimes,
You
but
had
you were
like,
never like, I'm not gonna go there because it's gonna get picked up anyway.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I when they initially gave me the points, I didn't realize they were going to give me a free loot pet, so I bought one. So I had two. So maybe that was the difference.
I only did one.
Yeah.
See,
You doubled
people were
it?
doing the double pet. I was only doing one because I was already getting so much shit. I was like,
Wait,
dog,
you
I
can
just don't need it."
double the pets and they pick up twice as much?
Question: if you play a blink
Hold up.
mirror arrow build, do you then get 1,000 loot pets that pick up the loot for you?
I use shield charge. I don't know.
Sounds great. Well,
Oh my god.
I feel like it's just bad design as well. If it's not even picking up the thing
Yeah.
like always, and then you have to like randomly like think, oh, is it gonna pick it up? Oh, I'm gonna pick it up anyways,
because-
and then it.
it's for the shit that you need but you don't want. So portals, blacksmiths, like you don't have that shit in your
Right.
filter at all. You take it out,
Yeah.
transmutes, you take it out of your filter entirely because you never want to be seeing it, you never want to be clicking it. But the pet still
Eventually, I
picks it up.
guess, yeah.
Yeah, but the pet still picks it up, so he gets all of that shit. Well, more than enough of it anyway. So that's really cool. And then what was extra cool is that when there was a fucking chromatic in a delirium, I could just go, Fernando, get that bitch for me. And you would run over, pick it up, everything would be exploding behind me, and I'd be like, hell yeah, dog, my man, and move it through the map. It was the best thing ever, dude. I loved it.
That's more of a
Does
delirium problem than a
it-
Fernando problem.
Fucking Fernando.
Does it work with your loot filter, or does it just
No, it has its own list of things and it just picks it up regardless.
so you don't even know half the time
No, and
unless
like,
you have it on your filter?
yeah, if you take
Pretty
scrolls off your filter, you'll
you
still
need-
come out with like a stack and a half.
Okay.
If you have one of
mean,
those tests
listen.
and you're in like super endgame, which I didn't get to this point, obviously on the client, but if you were to like theoretically do like double beyond, like I don't know, fucking maxed investment, 100% delirious T16 with one of those pets, half of your inventory would be wisdom scrolls.
Oh, you know what felt the best? The best? You would open a goddamn box and 40 portal scrolls would drop on the ground, and Fernando would just like swoop that shit up immediately, or like you do a delirium, dude. He'd make one round, everything's picked up, and in the meanwhile, you picked up like one armor piece, and you're like, hell yeah, this feels amazing. The unfortunate part, you know, as much as I love him for the upsides, you gotta love him for the downsides too. Holy shit. Managing the dump tab, there is no managing the dump tab. Okay, you go to town, you buy portal scrolls, then you buy transmutes for those portal scrolls, then you buy augments for those portal scrolls, and then you buy alterations. And suddenly you go back to your dump tab and it is literally cleared out entirely because all you had in there was fucking scrolls. Like he would pick up so many, it was ridiculous. So that was
You're
I'm just,
not selling them on this thing at all. That just
no.
sounds so terrible.
Told you.
That's what gets me. Like,
it's the same okay, it's the same way where in the Chinese race the
Just
leveling
do-
rewards are amazing, okay? Because when you get into town, you get 3 transmutes from the
want
first
those.
mission.
Those I want.
Then you get, and it explains what they do. Then you
Mhm.
get augments from the next mission. Then you get alterations from the next. And they keep explaining what they do. Not to mention that when you open your
Mhm.
skill tree, it shows you ascendancies. Imagine being a new player and picking a class and not knowing what the fuck ascendancies are. Not on the Chinese version. It actually tells you what it does. But that's besides the point. It explains the currency every time. And people were acting, and like through the entire process, you don't get any chaos. You get like a Vol Orb. You get like 3 fusings in Act 2.
5
5
5
fusings.
from Aramir.
Yeah, that was a huge one. And then over the course of the entire thing, you get like 6 alchemies. And people were acting like that somehow breaks the economy. Fuck off. Like, okay,
No,
are
this should
you
have been
real?
a thing.
Yeah, it was
Did you
crazy.
know that this league, for a brief time in softcore trade, the jewel that you get from the Wings of Asteri quest, uncorrupted, was worth like 30 chaos.
Of course.
Which you
Yeah.
could, if you wanted to make money by leveling characters, you could just do that and get the jewel and sell it for 30C every time you get to Act 8.
And
You
that's
know,
the
you
thing
can already
too.
make money by leveling characters.
That's the thing too, that they have anti-bot protection. So everything from the initial story before you get into maps is account bound anyway. So you can't even trade that shit. So whenever you would buy a currency tab, you would get 2 actually instead. And you would have 1 for bound currency and 1 for unbound currency. So it wouldn't do shit. But you know how comfortable it is to have 6 alchemies or to get a 5 link at the end of Act 10? It's so good.
The thing which I find funny about this, I don't know how many of you will remember, but it was just before Syndicate came out with Betrayal League. And we didn't know what the master would be, and we talked about how cool would it be if they reworked masters, that they worked like this. It's like you met Haku, and he was like the armor smith. You did like a quest for more leveling, and he gave you like blacksmiths, and we talked about how all this is working like an RPG way. But yeah, I would love for them to do something like that. I think it'd be really cool.
Oh yeah, and the one feature, because Chad is mentioning the free respec at 70, it wasn't a free respec at 70. It was you could respec for free at any point on the Chinese realm until level 70.
That's nice.
So I don't know. I'm really mixed on this. I don't know how you guys feel, because for me it's like on one side I don't like it because I want that cost to be there. I really do agree with GGG that being able to like modify builds anytime is not a good thing. But then again, we're arguing level 70. And then I'm also the type of player that won't respec. I'm just going to level a new character because I like that. But I get it for like other people's perspective. But then when I wanted to switch to CI, oh my God, it was the best feeling ever. You get to level 69 where you can get your hubris, you can get all of your ES gear equipped, and then you just fucking respec for free. And it was glorious. So yeah, I don't know. How do you guys feel about the respec thing?
I
like
would
a
really
real
like a
positive
system
for new
like that.
players.
Mathel spoke about this a bit in his recent video, and it's the same. I feel like most streamers do this. I'm sure there's like some which hate leveling, but most of us will just make a new character. We won't respec a pre-existing build into something else. Like people say to me, like, Tarke, why have you played like 8 tricksters this league when I've like made like multiple like essence drain or CI characters? I much rather just like feeling out a skill, like feeling out a build as you progress it and like seeing what the weak points are. And I feel like most people are like that. Sure, there'll be that one guy who's like, no, I just only have like one Marauder or one Ranger, and I will just respect them constantly. But I think it'd be fine.
I don't think people. I think there's plenty of people who do big respecs. End-game players. If you're playing on standard, I mean, are you really gonna sit there and level like, when you have like thousands of regress in your inventory and you need to like go to a new build? Plenty of people do that. Like do full respecs.
I'm not saying people don't do it, but I'm saying
it's not like a snowflake thing to do. It's like I think like certain people, it's very common. Like it's certain, yeah.
For me, I don't know if you'll agree or disagree with that. Whenever I've done that in the past, and I have done that, I tend to then get bored of the character after like 2 levels. Because I feel disconnected from it.
I mean, that depends on like what you're. It depends on what kind of player you are. Are you a player who are trying to optimize a build, or like just making lots of currency? Because then the character doesn't matter. Or you want someone who's trying to experience something new and making new builds and going on a new journey. Because I'm all for I'm the journey player. I'm with you. I level up a new character. But I've had times where it's like, well, there's no point in me leveling a new character. I might as well just respec this thing and then go. Because there's a long journey ahead of me now where it's like, oh, are you delving, for instance? Or are you doing a high tier bossing? Like, there's no point in re-rolling into that bossing build that's going to take forever to level if you play it specifically that way, to where you would want to then respec a new character.
It almost sounds like the fact that you can choose to do one or the other is a good thing. And maybe the level 70 respec wouldn't take that choice away.
I think the level 70 thing actually sounds good.
Yeah.
Piran says I'd do anything to avoid leveling. I remember one time I was watching his stream. He was looking to practice for leveling, and I asked him if he was having fun, and he just started laughing for a minute straight. he is not a fan of leveling, so I totally get that. But also on top of it, there's a paid leveling function past 70 that you can use at any point.
A paid
Wait, what?
A paid respec, full respec, yeah.
A paid
They bait you in with the until level 70, and it's also you can't do it at 70. You have to do it at 69. So it's like, and then past that you can purchase one. So
I don't like that.
No.
Yeah, that one's a little bit much, huh? Yeah.
I like it as like a feature that you get like one do-over per character. I think that's neat, especially in a game where you are supposed to, at least I would say that you're supposed to experiment in PoE, especially as a new player. And if you get to try a new build, I mean that has to be
must be really fun. One do-over per Kitava that you kill. So you can do a respec if you want to entering Act 6 when you have a res penalty and might need to adjust and account for that, and then a respec when you're entering maps and you have another res penalty and you might need to adjust for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
it would also lend more weight to the killing of Kitava. Though I guess in Act 10 you get 2 passive points, and that's pretty weighty.
I don't know. I think it's definitely a valid point, and I always think of Reckful and MMOs and the lengths Reckful would go to try not to actually. He likes PvP. He hates playing video games. He hates nothing more than leveling characters. So I do feel for the people who are just like, fuck this game, just give me the thing at end game, fuck anything else. Was there anything else from the China client, Raiz, that you're like, we need this? Or anything you were like, I definitely don't want that?
See, I don't have a super strong opinion because I didn't even use it despite it being available. But I think something that a lot of people would have enjoyed is the one button use all Flask thing. I think a lot of people, I remember seeing a straw poll on Reddit, and obviously Reddit is very different to like the regular player base because they're much more dedicated players, right? But it was something like, if there was one, would you use it? Are you using one right now? And it was like 50% using one right now, baby. 30% I would if it was there, and then 20% it was like, I don't have a strong opinion / I wouldn't really use it. So it was like,
Can't you
pretty good.
like wasn't there an option to link certain, like there's more customizing of it, right? It's not just all 5 every time. Couldn't you do like
I'm not sure.
only 3 of them? And because that sounds really good.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, because that's the thing is you don't want to, because there's also the awkward thing like different flasks with different durations. If flasks were normalized,
right,
then I could see a case of like, yeah, fuck it, I want to press my Jade and my Stibnite at the same time, but I don't want to like go through like 5 flask charges on one, or like a Basal, or then my life flask.
They become way boring if they're normalized, though. I don't know.
Really?
I don't know if you were...
Nobody's saying they should. Tarke is just saying that.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't know if you were actually calling for that, but personally, I think that, like, maybe not in terms of duration, but in terms of charge usage.
Yeah, it's
like
kind of cool how some people use like a Sulfur or a Stibnite, even if it's not optimal because it's got so many uses on it. I do find it weird that there's different durations on Flask. I think Flask would feel a lot better if they all had a set duration and the charges would be different.
Yeah, but even the ones with the most charges are the ones with the longest duration, like Stibnite or quartz and all this sort of stuff, they're the ones with the longest duration anyway. So you'd only ever play about the bottom ones, like granite or basalt, especially. I would imagine.
Basalt always it's really strong, but it feels really awkward because of the duration and the charges on it.
You gotta get that Chemist 23, man.
Yep. I always run
don't
Chemist.
spam it.
So.
I mean, that's where I mean I feel like that's just I am a lazy gamer, and it would feel a lot better if the game catered to me kind of deal. You know, there's a lot of
okay, Mr. Ow my shoulder. Okay.
Hey, my left hand is perfectly fine. My left hand is fine.
Hey, I can't actually play Path of Exile currently because of how the game works as a feature, but fuck anyone with bad wrists, by the way.
No, I'm just you're just saying that it feels awkward, and it would be nicer if everything was just lined up. And you don't. The thing is, if you have everything as a one-time press all, it's really awkward. But if you actually press things, you know, within their given duration, it feels fine because certain flasks act differently. I don't think that's a bad thing.
I genuinely feel like flasks have been a problem in Path of Exile for a very long time, and I've been talking about it for a while. I haven't liked the flasks in PoE since beta. I liked it in beta because in beta you wouldn't always have your flasks active. But since we've had this,
that was like years before that became a thing. Before we have everything active.
No, that's what I liked it. Like I liked it when it was a situation where it's like you couldn't just press all your flasks because they wouldn't even last for the full pack. Like you had to think about when you use them.
Yeah, it was like a skill use.
Exactly.
Instant.
And also back then we pressed less buttons, and that's the thing that people need to think about.
Because the game was slower.
Yeah, so because the game was slower, it's like you'd press like EK. You didn't really use movement skills because if you use movement skills, you'd disconnect or DC and stuff. Like you wouldn't use whirling blades because that'd be like ugh. So it was like you would walk everywhere and you'd use like maybe manual curse, and then your main skill, maybe something to trigger EE.
Yeah, but it was also like a 10k granite, no.
Yeah,
so...
but it felt a lot more natural to me because I was having to press fewer things. Now you're in the situation where it's like, okay, I'm pressing a guard skill, I'm pressing my main skill, I've got an instant like Val skill or something, I've got maybe like the equivalent of like a bear trap or something which augments my main skill. I'm then just mashing flasks mindlessly. It hasn't felt good for me for a really long time.
On the bright side, the quartz flask was definitely 50% of the reason why the desync didn't feel as bad as it did in the past, I would say. Because if you run through mobs, you don't get desync. Yeah.
And also now that like nearly every league we're pressing some kind of league mechanic button as well. Like I feel like flasks haven't felt good for a long time, and yeah.
I think the game has just outgrown the flask system. Yeah. I think it's just as simple as that, because the game was designed about like there's a certain amount of monsters in every zone. It takes a certain amount of time to go from this thing to that thing, and there's like a lot more weight in that. And also there is, you know, whenever you would commit, you would need your potions, right? But the things were very slow, so you could like step out of a pack, move around, try and get some more charges, and then move back in with your potions. That's kind of how we played.
I vividly remember that was the thing you used to do. You're like, oh, this rare pack is scary. Let me kill some white mobs and come back. You wouldn't really do that anymore.
All right, then. But then how do you propose we change the flask system without giving power creep, but also without feeling like you're nerfing the players?
I would personally separate charges from enemies, and I'd make them feel more like cooldowns with timers.
Yes. I think that needs to be cooldowns on them or something.
Because it also goes to the issue where, like, because the way that I don't like the way that flasks work with bosses either. Because you either have a situation where your build does enough damage that you global the boss and then you just go like 5 DPS flasks. Or you've got the situation where you're like a Pathfinder or a Scion. Like, I think Pathfinder Scion works really well. I like that slow flask game. That feels good to me. And then it's the situation where like, oh, you're just anyone else and your build just feels kind of shitty. In between, like, random, like, with the Cirrus and not having ads. I think that was the situation a lot of people realized, like, oh, shit, I can't just have all these utility flasks. Like, when Cirrus first came out and we saw people going, like, 5 life flasks, or, like, loads of people playing, like,
that was great.
Stuff. Like, that I liked. I thought that was cool. But, yeah, no, I feel like flasks should be cooldown based, and it should be, like, they're either cooldown based, or if they're keeping charges, that you gain a set amount of like charges a second, and that's how they're managed. But yeah.
Yeah. I can
think,
just think
like,
of Wolfio going like, they finally get it. They finally, people like running 3 life flasks for a week, and he's like, yes, finally the community understands.
It is kind of
Sorry,
funny because
Ziggy.
like PoE in the beta, people would actually run like 3 life flasks.
Oh yeah.
Disconnecting flask charges from mob kills because it just doesn't make sense in the current state of the game. That's not something I would have thought of, but now that you say it, it's like sounds perfect because yeah, it's like such a better experience when you're playing Pathfinder when you're fighting bosses and stuff like that. And then with that change, they could also keep Pathfinder by making you get fast charges faster. So you know, if the flask stuff's still more powerful. Whereas otherwise, if you weren't doing that and you were keeping flask charges the same, but maybe saying making flasks more powerful, but keeping them tied to monsters, I'd be like, you have to get rid of Pathfinder in that case.
It's also
Yeah, but wouldn't you have to nerf them? Like the flasks, if you do a system like this where it's more cooldown oriented, don't you have to reduce the amount of flasks or nerf them in
really.
general? Like you're giving so much power
you
against
could
bosses, which
normalize
is
them a
supposed to be
little
the
bit.
hardest content.
Like you could normalize them. I don't think it'd be that big of a deal. I think another way to like win people over to this point of view who don't like it, it's kind of like the people who really hated the way that Estus Flask changed in like Dark Souls 1 to 2 when you had the gems you could heal with. Whereas in 1, you were limited to your heals based on the bonfires. So the whole game was built around that thing. But then once they changed the way the healing system worked, it kind of broke that entire loop. So if you make Flask to like a resource and it's like I need to manage my resource rather than my hand hurts or I don't think about it, because the vast majority of people don't really think about flasks. Like you don't think about them until you don't have them and then you die. Or your build's good enough that you don't think about them because you just kill everything instantly.
So the goal with the cooldowns would eventually be to get to a point where flasks are not perma uptime while mapping.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
a resource you need to manage and manage wisely.
Yeah, but then you would have higher uptime on bosses, which is supposed to be the difficult content.
I mean,
why-
Yeah, but then you can design the bosses around it.
Why do you have a system?
So you redesign the game?
Not necessarily, because okay, you'll have the situation where it's like, okay, so currently with like Shaper or Cirrus, right? There's the big scary attack, you dodge the big scary attack, and then you kind of know when your DPS phase is. Like, okay, here I can get a couple hits in. So you'd be like, I'm gonna bank my Bottled Faith or my Ziggy for when I get the DPS flask. Boom, I've got my 5 seconds. I can do my DPS phase. Or you could be like, actually, maybe if I have my defensive flasks, maybe I can take this hit and I can get a bit more damage in. And it's still going to be a case if you're trying to dodge attacks and you're still trying to like
That I would hate.
fight. Why would you hate it?
It's because in every other game, that's the issue that I always run into, that I find like a item that just allows me to face tank anything for that duration of time. So if Flask were to ever function like that, that would be horrible for me, especially in PoE where like
but
bursty.
But builds
That's
have
literally
already
PoE
done that in
though.
PoE.
Ball molten.
Yeah, because they're always active.
But like that's
I'm
the game.
definitely not a
No,
fan of the current
but
system.
think about it this way then, right? Like if you're going in and you're like, let's say right now, like you just blow through, you pop all your potions and you blow through them, right? You tank everything, you do the damage. If you then, whenever your flasks are down, you feel very vulnerable,
Yeah.
right? So you still have.
shows a good example. Yeah.
So you still have like that. That's you're just. I feel like you're describing PoE right now.
Trying to think of like edge cases, things that would function widely differently with this system as opposed to the current one, and curse maps would be way more dangerous because if you balance it correctly so that flasks aren't up 100% of the time, suddenly you're vulnerable, say a quarter of the time in a vulnerability map, or you're slowed a quarter of the time in a temp change.
But
that sort of thing.
That's fine.
that I think that's fine. It is also it's one of the things you need to keep in mind that completely reworking Flask is obviously quite a big change. Like it's a big change, and it's not like they would do that and not change anything else about the game. And that's also
It seems like a PoE 2 change, right?
Exactly,
Like that's a PoE 2
exactly.
change.
And
It
I'm
works
not
great.
necessarily saying that you're doing this, but I'm just gonna say in general, it's a very like Reddit or YouTube comment thing to do. We're saying, oh, we can't change anything, Tarke, because if we change anything, we'll have to change something else, and it's impossible. Developers
Oh,
can't
savage.
change more than one thing in a game. It can't happen because what about curse maps?
No, I
Yeah,
was
but
just
it's so
interested
bad.
in like what other ramifications might lead on from that. You know, not necessarily saying it's good or bad, just that is a thing that would, you know, operate differently. Which
Isn't
actually,
a bad thing if there is like scary moments in PoE.
no, I think
No.
that would be fine.
I would even say that might be a positive if we get to these points where our characters are vulnerable for brief moments of time, so we actually have to like pay attention.
Yep.
It would be really interesting, or I think it would make a lot more sense for this to be a PoE 2 change as well, though, because we're going to be getting so many more buttons to press, presumably in PoE 2, given how much more space we're going to have access to in all of our builds. Like you were talking earlier, how flasks are a burden because you've got that molten shell you have to press, and you've got the war cry you got to press, and you got the, flesh and stone you might want to toggle or whatever. Then when you have another 4 or 6 links to also juggle, or however many, flasks are going to be even more of an annoyance.
Yeah.
And just so we're clear, I'm 100% on board with the whole idea of it being like a more cooldown based thing. I'm all for cooldowns. When people were like, fuck cooldowns in PoE, and GGG started finally busting out vol skills, oh my god, hell yeah, dude. I love that shit. I just don't want a situation like because you mentioned 2 options, right? So the first option would be really good, and I think we would have to have a flask nerf where flasks are like a temporary boost to defense that is somewhat available, but it's not like nearly as powerful as it is right now, especially on some of the ascendancies. But then I also would hate for it to feel like, well, basically, yeah, how Vol Molten Shell feels right now, where you pop Vol Molten Shell, you go full retard.
Yeah.
You don't care about anything. You
could
can stand in every attack.
Yeah, I'm definitely not advocating for a situation where it's like, okay, I've got 5 cooldowns. Each cooldown is basically a Vol Molten Shell, and I just rotate between them. So I press the first one, then I press the second one. By the time I got to the 5th one, the first one's coming off cooldown, then I press that one again.
You say that, but you think about the ramifications of something like that. If you click a Granite Flask on an Inquisitor, that's not that big of a deal. You click a Jade Flask on a Trickster, well, suddenly, your build becomes way different. It's like you go from being a peasant to a god.
I mean, people
you have to just rebalance so much stuff.
I mean, people already do stuff like that though. Like I've played a couple of builds this league where it's like you're like a trickster and you've got Vol Molten Shell, Vol Grace, Vol Discipline, and a bunch of duration. And then it's like I can press my Vol Grace and I won't take any damage for like 15 seconds. Then I press the Vol Molten Shell. I'm definitely not going to die when that's up. And then I can Discipline. They need to nerf Vol Molten
Shell. It's not great for sure.
Like you would open Molten Shell then Grace. Like you would, yeah.
Oh, I've gone all blurry. Oh, there we go. I'm back. It is a bit of a side point, but like a smaller thing. It would be interesting as well in that it would open up the previous design space of on-kill flasks to be something they could play around with. So you could have like a unique Vol flask that, like Vol skill gems, charges with kills, unlike all those other flasks that have a cooldown. Now instead you have this one that does a special thing and can charge with kills. That'd be neat.
Yeah,
right. That makes a lot of sense as well. Like having a Vol flask being the one that charges on kill, yeah, to generate more Vol. I like that. But on the note of that you have to rebalance everything if you have a cooldown, I don't agree with that at all. Just because when you think about it, what flask setup right now would be broken if you put it on a cooldown? It means you don't have permanent uptime anymore.
Well, yeah, right now. But the reason why we're talking about it is because the current system sucks.
But just by adding a cooldown, literally the only thing we've been talking about is adding a cooldown. What does that?
Very brave people who go low life with a coruscating elixir. That's pretty much it.
They just get nerfed.
Or they run multiple. They could just run multiple and have 100%. Actually, they would be buffed because they could run multiple and rotate between them theoretically. Like if you could clip them, so you had 100% uptime. If you had like 4, that would actually be a buff to that build.
Or they could wear a Chaperone's wrappings.
Or they could they could wear a shaft. Yeah.
It's just I'm feeling like there's this like but it's like impossible because we have to do all this work. Like I feel like that you would need to do almost no work and it would just function.
And it would be better, but I don't think it would be good. But I do think that considering the changes in PoE 2, I think that would be a perfect opportunity to do something like that for sure. Like
because it's an entire paradigm shift. People aren't going into it with the expectations that they've built up for years playing Path of Exile. You know, if you just put flasks on a cooldown now, there's going to be fucking whiplash that breaks people's necks because they're going to suddenly not be able to have an adrenaline Quicksilver flask up 100% of the time.
I mean, there's no way you're adding 20 new ascendancies and you're not changing the old ones. Like, that's just not going to happen.
It's also, and this is probably the least popular comment I could make about that. It would also make console players get so much quality of life. Because I played PoE on PlayStation, didn't mind it. The Flask thing drove me fucking insane.
It's because of you're missing like one extra button.
You had to like rebind them and all this bullshit.
If you have one extra button, I feel like it works. Like one of those ones where you like do the under the balls thing on the controller, that would have worked. But if you just do a normal controller, no, it's far. Yeah, because you have these ones, you know.
Same. They're making mobile like. The way that Flasks work on mobile is kind of weird. It's kind of like a swipe. I don't know if they changed it, but it was a swipe thing, right, Octavian, when we played it in the office?
Probably. I don't know.
To be fair, they kind of cheated a bit because it's like the demo we played, we had like an Arc Witch. I mean, you play this as well, Ziggy. So it's like, okay, guys, basically we're giving you PoE mobile. Just like, it's Arc Witch. Tell us what you think. And everything's just like auto aim, obviously, because it's Arc. And,
There was several classes, and I played a few different ones, by the way.
Oh, I only played the Arc Witch. What do you think of the other stuff on it?
Felt pretty fine. It's like basically Samus console. Like things kind of auto target. You know, you don't have the same level of precision or anything like that, but most of the time it's just clicking on the mobs anyway.
Damn it! You missed an opportunity there, Ziggy. When Tarke was like, "How did the other ones feel?" You should have just said, "They burnt my hands."
Yes. It did get hot. The phone did get hot. I've said this a few times, but there was a serious moment. It was another dev who worked at GGG. Me and Octavian, we all kind of like looked at each other, and it's just like, just gonna put this down now, and like, oh, it's still quite warm, our hand. They got really hot. They did get very hot. Yeah.
They would like, you would return it, they would drop it into a cooler. It was pretty intense. It was a lot. But it did play pretty good. I thought
it was surprisingly decent. I feel like we got slightly distracted. From
I don't know. Where were we? Flasks or something?
Flasks, yeah.
No, we were. If I recall correctly, we're about to ask what's Octavian been up to. We're halfway through the intro. Yeah. We were originally talking about.
We're out of practice. It's been a while.
It's been a while. What have you been up to, Octavian?
What? We never even got over what I actually did. You just asked me about my shoulder.
Oh, actually, I wanted to ask you.
True.
Did that come? Did you have a pre-existing like injury, or did it just come out of nowhere, or?
Out of nowhere. I've been playing PoE for like 20,000 hours.
No, I'm saying, did you have a pre-existing injury, or did PoE cause the injury?
Was the pre-existing injury?
PoE caused it.
Okay.
There's like a few things that the thing that causes is I'm an idiot and I don't have proper support for my elbows and I have a bad posture. And then playing PoE for like days on end.
One thing I think you'll appreciate, which is related to somewhere I asked that question, I fell down the stairs like 2 years ago and I landed really badly on my wrist. And ever since then, my right wrist, is if I lean on it funny, it gets a bit kind of weak. I took a break from streaming this league and I read all the Witcher books again. I actually gave myself RSI from the way I was holding the books, and I wasn't playing PoE at all. And I found it really funny that as a PoE streamer, I gave myself RSI from holding a fucking book and not from playing video games. And I've been wearing like a wrist brace to sleep in every night, and it's starting to get better now. But well, you're right there, Raiz.
I'm just wondering if you can see how like my fingers are crooked, like both of these ones. They're like to the sides. It's because I was holding a Game Boy my entire childhood, so it just fucked up my fingers. The advanced one, it was like that bitch was heavy, and then it didn't have like a backlight, so you had to put something on top of it if you wanted to play in the dark, because then you needed the backlight, otherwise you wouldn't show anything. So just my fingers all crooked.
Permanently warped by demonic video gaming.
Pretty much, yeah.
Handheld Switch is fucky as well. The Switch is a really weird shape. I love the Switch. It's my favorite console, but it's a weird shape to hold.
They make worse controls.
Sort of a.
People hate when I say that, but
Aside from the injury, what have you been up to?
Oh,
what did you get to say?
I played Terraria
Okay.
and Dagestan. I've just been playing some other games, trying to find some ways to cope, like playing other things. Even though I've actually really enjoyed PoE this league, so there's that. We'll talk about other games. Like, shouldn't we like just finish up the round here? Wouldn't that be a good idea?
Yeah. So Octavian, can I ask? Is Noogie? Am I allowed to ask him now? Or
yeah,
you good? You good? All right, Octavian, what have you been up to?
I played a little bit in the China race. Didn't perform quite as well as my co-host here, but still enjoyed playing on the client. And 200 ping didn't feel nearly as bad as I thought it would. And I played a bit in some private leagues in Brittle's Bingo League, and now I have decided that since the league is extended, I'm going to use that as an opportunity to try to kill Cyrus 8 in solo self-found hardcore, because I've not done that yet.
Oh my god, that fight is so fucky now. Holy shit. I didn't know how much they changed it and they made a boss killer in the Chinese race. I got destroyed on Awakeners 0. Granted, it's 200 ping and like all the mods and everything, and there's no voice line, so it was a lot. But the way they changed the spinny thing, where not only does it slow you to a crawl, but also it makes you take extra damage.
And it's thick.
And it is thick. Man, that fight is something now. I don't know. It's going to take me a while to learn it. It's going to be hard. Because usually learning fights on hardcore hasn't been that crazy for me. But then this one, I feel like it's just no fucking way, you know? No, actually, never mind. I'll just get blocked.
Yeah, max block, element immunity, you're good.
Now that I think about it.
Hey, Raiz, who do you think was harder, Cyrus in Path of Exile or Cyrus in Minecraft Dungeons?
Wait, which one's Cyrus in Minecraft Dungeons?
The final boss of the story.
He was
Got the
like a
Cyrus beams?
Arakali. He was like a Arakali Cyrus mix. Yeah, makes sense.
Let's see that.
That's a cool freaking fight, by the way.
Dude, I was like, this is harder than Cyrus. I still think that.
Wait,
even
really?
now that I've beaten him.
Have you done
like,
the new one? The new one's crazy. The previous,
previously
he was so easy. Now, I don't know. My pattern just can't. Like it doing that fight feels like that thing where you have to like pat yourself on the head and rub your tummy at the same time. And, like nobody can do that shit. That's what the new Awakener fight feels like to me. I can't do it. It's too much.
The worst thing is in the Minecraft Dungeons versions of Cyrus. Imagine the X-Beam, right, in PoE right now. But imagine Cyrus could push the X-Beam at you because the Minecraft Dungeons boss does that. He pushes the X-Beam around sometimes. You're like standing, you're like, all right, I've put it in a good spot. And then you'll like push it against, you're like, hold up, he's pushing it against the wall. I have nowhere to go. I was livid. I raged so hard on the first time I did that fight.
So is this like the new hardcore ARPG then? Because I haven't played it.
It's kind of no. It's like no, obviously, but in some ways, I'm like surprised actually how hard some of the stuff is. I'm like, but the first time I did that final boss fight in Minecraft Dungeons, I'm like, they can't put this in this game. Kids are gonna cry when they fight this boss.
Yeah,
this boss cry.
See, we 3-manned it because it was Noogie, Ziz, and me. And we played the game in the beta a little bit, and the first time we did it, it was like really manageable. And then we did it because the way you do it, there's 3 difficulties, but also on every mission you can ramp up the difficulty like ×6 pretty much to a maximum. So we were like, oh, let's just do the second one, and then we like got there. Holy shit, we got our asses handed to us. It was insane. So then we had to build up, and it was pretty good. Overall, yeah, I don't know. I was positively surprised by Minecraft Dungeons for sure.
I wouldn't want to upset Niggy. Before we talk about that, Ziggy, what have you been up to?
I think this has to be a record for intro. What are we, 1 hour, 25 minutes into the podcast?
Yeah, I'm curious if we managed to finish the intro before we finish the episode, but yeah.
Hey, we got a good thing going here.
Yeah.
I'm actually really glad we kind of went on this massive rant about like RSI and stuff brought on by Niggy's shoulder, because we think that needs to be talked about more and pushed for more. Like, yeah. So what have I been up to? I'm playing a bit of Minecraft Dungeons, played a bunch of Mountain Blade when that came out, casted some races this last weekend. It was a pretty awesome time, actually. Very cool. And playing some Monster Train, a new roguelite deck builder as well, which maybe we'll have a chat about some of those games in a bit too. Yes, but also a new last Epoch patch came out just the day before yesterday. Really big one.
Oh,
What's like the big thing in it?
There's like it's fucking like 5 pages of patch notes, but very short things that I want to mention. One is that so the game's basically version of currency is like affix shards. You can click one and it picks them all up in the area.
GG, please. We're gonna circle back to
We're having
start
a whole
the
conversation. I'm like, oh my god, Last Epoch just introduced this, and like the technology is there. Also, they just overhauled their stash system, and they have stash tabs. You can group stash tabs into tabs. It's 2 rows. I'm like, oh my god, PoE, please. So you can make a tab and then put other tabs inside of it. So he's like, here's all my different like currency related tabs, and then put those tabs inside that tab. Also, it doesn't cost MTX money, but that's a different thing.
Wait. A good feature that doesn't have a price tag? What is this?
Can cost
Hold
gold.
up.
I'm really curious now that Carve is like hired by their dev team, how many issues that he took from PoE. He's like, we need to implement this in this game so we don't have it because fuck PoE for this, you know.
I'm curious to see
All
the
of
direction the game takes under his own influence, whether it ends up being this like massive Omega brain glowy stuff that
he
none of
removes
us
the
will
entire game,
understand.
and every day you log in, you just get given a new Atlas sheet, and you've got to try and work out the most efficient way of doing the Atlas before it changes tomorrow.
Oh god. But yeah, no, a ton of stuff in that patch. So in addition to some really nice quality of life stuff, they did something I was pretty like a bit unsure about first, but they made class specific chest and helmets. So all the other items are not class specific, but chests and helmets are. And I was like pretty on that idea, but after I spent a bit of time talking about the devs, because they were asking whether they wanted my unique exsanguinus, which is a chest armor, to be class specific or global. I opted for global after a big discussion with them, but I'm kind of on board with the idea now because it lets them do a lot more interesting stuff with implicits, which the implicits in that game are pretty impactful generally. Like there's some pretty major stuff there, so they can do more with that. And they have like an affix pool system now for these item slots. You know, chest and helmet are like 2 of the biggest slots in action RPGs typically. I'd say that's fairly true in PoE, at least on the defensive side of things. Obviously, weapons really big as well. But this allows them to have like affix pools where like you will see ward or the game's energy shield things for classes where that makes sense, but not for classes where it doesn't make sense. I mean, it's a different game to PoE, so it kind of works out. I was hesitant at first, but I'm kind of on board with the idea. So a big itemization change from that, as well as like just a ton of skills and other various improvements and things like that.
Sort of like a more a sharper, more focused version of bases, you know, where like you have a int base in PoE won't roll like armor rolls and stuff if it's a pure int base. Like you have the classes that'll roll, you know, more identifying affixes. Like this is for this thing in this category alone.
Yeah, ultimately they already kind of had a bit of that going on where you could like, oh, here's kind of like the lighter base, which is more like, I guess, light armor, but you get mana or something from it. Whereas this is the you know, the robes, or whereas this is the heavy armor, which is more armor focused. So they had a bit of that, but yeah, much more like kind of defined clearly now since it's class driven. And I like the idea that it's some slots, not everything.
I feel like that's the beauty of PoE, that generally, even though there's such a large pool of everything, it is mixed in a way where it works. But the one thing where I don't think it's ever worked is mana, and like how mana is available for certain ascendancies and how broken it is for some, but then for everybody else it's like so useless and makes it impossible to balance, since you kind of have a middle ground now, which is Archmage, which you could argue is broken anyway. But even if they nerf it, it's still going to be like a top end. There's just no way of like making it work for the average player without having it be completely broken for like somebody who's willing to invest enough.
Did you see the Bex tweet?
Super with you.
Oh, the Archmage?
What does Archmage and dinosaurs have in common thing? It's like,
They're really cool.
Brands specifically.
See, I hate that. I don't know why, because Archmage is like my favorite playstyle in PoE in years. The option of sacrificing defense to actually dish out more damage is such a cool concept to me, because when you fuck up and you get hit when your defense is down, you get hurt. Obviously, it's pretty strong, but I'm surprised. Like, I hate to do the whole thing where it's like they say a thing, so now I'm gonna call them out for it forever. But like, why address that like that and not like a a Harold situation? Like,
Well,
I
they
don't
did
know.
the change to the
No,
to the
but
Herald stuff way back, or a month and a half, however long ago it was. They did say
True.
like more changes are coming that will be much more significant. They've already
Hmm.
said they're going to be nerfing it.
Okay, yeah.
wait.
Fair.
Did they say so? When this didn't this was it Archmage? Wasn't it something?
I can't remember exactly. I think it was.
I'm pretty sure it was Stormbrand.
Wasn't it Archmage
They said
Stormbrand?
Stormbrand Archmage.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
talking
so
about
it's
brand.
specific
it's
to
Stormbrand
Stormbrand.
Archmage?
Yeah.
So Archmage is probably gonna be, as long as you're not cheesing it with the brand recall and OOS.
Yeah.
Then I'm way on board. I thought it was Archmage
Yeah.
across the board.
No.
Yeah, it was Archmage Stormbrand.
Yes, and just to be clear, Bex made a meme tweet talking about specifically Archmage Stormbrand. She didn't mention any specific changes, but everyone's run away with their conclusions about what that exactly means.
Didn't even say that it's getting nerfed, technically.
Well,
Also, a little bit of insider information. If you look at Bex's Twitter, you'll see that the next league definitely has a toe theme. Because as we all know,
toe?
every Bex tweet dictates the next league direction. And she tweeted about me breaking my toe. Therefore, the next league is toe league.
Is
That
your
makes
toe
sense.
broken, by the way?
Yeah, I
saw that
actually
clip.
did break my toe. It really hurts. I was waiting.
Then it's probably the thing about toe is that if it hurts, it's probably not broken.
It's
been
not.
always my
It's
experience.
not the toe itself that hurts. It's the bone halfway down the foot that hurts like a bitch.
Oh,
But
you're
I hit my
fucked.
toe, which makes me think I did something to the bone.
Yeah, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
I agree with you though, Raiz. Going back a minute, mana has always been kind of fucky in action RPGs in general, and especially PoE. It's all over the place. Either it's like something you just completely never think about, like you just create the like little solution where it's like a tiny bit of mana leech on an attack build, and then mana is completely a non-factor in your build creation. Or the thing I like the most is like Archmage, Mind Over Matter characters, because they do the most with mana. You actually have to put something into it, some thought, and it has an impact on your character. That's kind of some of the like last Epoch has a long way to go with a lot of things, and I don't think they've solved the mana issue. Not even close. It's a very difficult topic, but I like that they have an interesting opportunity that they can see what PoE's done and try some new stuff. So their approach to mana is rather interesting. They've got a lot of kind of skill-based focus on mana. So either you get mana back with a certain skill, like a different skill, or you invest parts of your skill trees. Each skill in that game has its own skill tree. You invest parts of your skill tree into finding mana solutions, whether that's through like mana efficiency for the skills or mana gain. There's no mana leech in that game. There's no mana flasks. Generally, it's all kind of like skill-based stuff. You can build regen through like gear and stuff and passives, but generally it's all kind of skill-focused mana. So it seems to be a much greater factor in that game, and you can do some pretty crazy stuff where you get like into mana debt in that game. Where if you have 1 mana and you spend 100 mana, you go to negative 99. You can't cast any more spells, but you can actually overspend, and that's kind of a mechanic you can play around with. There's some actually kind of interesting stuff going on there. I wonder if GGG are interested in like kind of doing more with mana, that maybe is like a PoE 2 thing. We talked about Flask. I'm super on board with the mega changes to Flask, but I wonder if we'd ever see much done with mana.
It is weird because it is a pretty big part of the game. I don't know why they never at least attempted to introduce other resources. I mean, I guess Energy Shield in a way is like another resource for mana.
True.
I do think PoE in general though has that problem. Or well, you can call it a problem, or you can just call it a feature and like the way the game flows. Like if you look at so mana and PoE, like whenever you take anything to the extreme and there's an option for it, right? It feels insane. It's the same thing with like ES, right? A lot of players will probably say, "Oh, it's really hard for at least for a long time." You would say this, like it's very hard for a new player to come in and feel like ES is like any good, going CI or anything. But then if you give like a veteran player the tools, all of a sudden you get like the most broken build ever. And the same thing kind of holds true for mana. It's just when you're trying to balance like these three pools of a resource, it gets really hard to make everything equally strong. You have life because that's like the base thing we have, and it's easy to manage because it's this gradual thing we get more and more of, and like items are pretty homogeneous in how much we gain. So there's not these we don't have these big spikes, so it's easier to balance. Whereas with these other resources, the numbers go like crazy. So how do you manage to like balance everything and keep it interesting without having it being completely the same as say, life? Like how do you differentiate ES with life and ES with mana? Because if they are not different, or if they're all the same, then they're not interesting. So they kind of have to be different.
Well, in a way, they also moved away even from that idea, with like blood magic being a thing in the past and not as much anymore outside of like reservation things. But I think a solid approach. I mean, this is again something that's never going to happen. But what Ziggy mentioned with the last Epoch, I mean, to a certain extent, Diablo 2's also done that. I mean, I feel like the ultimate system, and it's not executed very well, but the system that I personally like the most is the Lost Ark one, where you ping pong 2 resources, and through that you generate like inherent cooldowns to skills on top of the already available cooldowns. It's not executed very well because it's
Is
very
it like a
cheesable.
slightly more advanced version of what they had in D3? Where it's kind of like you have like a generator and a
More
spell.
so like what they had in Wolcen.
Okay.
And because in Wolcen,
do you mean the Wolcen system?
yeah, the Wolcen system was like turbo bad. So yeah.
It was a good idea. It just had a lot of execution issues.
No, again, I like that idea. It's just like
Yeah.
it just made no sense the way they did it. So I would like that a lot in general in games, but
That was
yeah, it's kind of hard.
One thing I actually wanted to ask, since we were going to go into variety stuff, what are resource systems? It could be in any game that you've played that you felt like really worked. Because I feel like resource systems often feel like a bit of a rough point in a lot of games, and I feel like mana and PoE does at times feel rough.
Dudes, I'm gonna say it. Diablo 3's resource systems on some of their classes actually work pretty well. Like I played mostly Demon Hunter, and they had the Rage. I can't remember what the other one was called. Like
Vengeance or something.
Opposite of Rage. Yeah, something like that. It had like the Rage and Discipline. That's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Discipline. Yeah. The dual resource system of that I thought worked really well.
Yeah, Hatred Discipline. Yeah, Demon Hunters did feel good in that
Hatred
game.
Discipline. That's the one. Hatred Discipline.
I mean, there in D3, everything is designed around the class as well.
Yeah.
Like it's all meant to fit.
Yeah.
The resource is the thing that differentiates the class more so than like the actual playstyle.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
PoE, you kind of create it yourself, right? You kind of figure out your own way of designing how you're going to manage resources, which is I like PoEs more than like I know it sometimes it gets very messy, but I do think that there is something kind of beautiful in that mess in PoE.
I like it a lot more since the changes to mana potions and like now with Archmage and stuff like that. I definitely think it's improved a lot.
That's true.
I mean, that's just because you run out of mana.
And limiting leech. No, but it's also limiting leech. No, because you could argue that before you ran out less because there were just so many ways to like cheese your mana too with the leech off of boots as casters and stuff like that. So I don't know.
I like the caster changes and the Archmage stuff in a general sense. The idea that mana is something that has to take a little bit more thought in PoE. Like, you're using mana flask, or you're building a ton of regen, or you're going mind over mana, or doing something like that. The idea of taking away mana leech for casters, I think, was a good move in that. The problem with PoE is that when you run out of mana, it's worse than death.
Right.
I would rather my character die in PoE than be out of mana. It's
There's nothing worse
the
than
worst feeling in the world.
You don't know that you've gone into a no regen map, and you have that like, fuck. Why isn't my build working? And you're like,
delete the character.
A new hardcore mode, delete your character when you run out of mana. But that's because there's nothing compelling to do when you run out of mana in PoE. It's like, I just can't do anything right now. I'm trying to cast my skill and I'm default attacking, or nothing's happening. My character's just running into the mobs. or I portal out. That's like the answer in PoE, and that's the least compelling, like most frustrating feeling thing, and that's the problem. I think good resource systems have something in common, is the idea that when you run out, you have something you can do, something compelling, whether it's like a generator or some other mechanic, like in last Epoch, where you go into mana debt and then maybe you do something interesting with that, or you have some other skill that you use that does something interesting.
I actually really liked the debt system they had in last Epoch, because they had skills with like really high costs as well. So you kind of be like, I can maybe do like 3 or 4 of these. I remember there was like, I can't remember if they call it the Crusader or the Warrior, but it had like this big like void slam, and I could do like exactly like 3 of them, and it felt really good because it was like a massive thing.
It's a Void Knight.
I feel like a lot of those systems are really hard to crunch down to the time frames that PoE works in now, though.
Yeah.
Like, because if you think about it, even in an Archmage build, like I was doing Archmage Cremation for the majority of this league, and like that build works because Cremation has a fairly long duration. You don't have to cast it that often, and I was still casting it like twice a second sometimes. You know, like that's not that often for PoE terms.
Yeah, I wonder if they were to ever address that. Like in PoE 2, would they ever be willing to like switch up mana? I feel like they feel that they worked so hard to make mana the way it is right now, and I believe them because it works. Like it probably took a lot of brainstorming to actually take away some of the power away from the players to give it back in a way. But yeah, I absolutely agree with the whole like resource spending to get another resource. It's pretty cool.
But
then
I don't
again,
think they will ever touch mana.
Yeah,
Right.
I think it's
I
the
don't think
least
they
likely
should.
thing. PoE 2.
I could
At
maybe
least it
see
worked
them
out.
like making a new Ascendancy, which has got some like fucking new resource system. That's kind of like what the new Ascendancy does, because they're making
Replacing
what is it,
mana
18 new Ascendancy, so they've got to have some like weird ideas.
do they?
I mean,
I don't know.
18, dude.
See, I was thinking that too. I was like, what the fuck can they come up with? Because like
19,
especially
sorry.
after Raider, I was like, they're out of ideas. If they can't do anything interesting with Raider, it's done. Like there's no way.
Hey, you could do some neat stuff with Raider.
Yeah, change the entire class, but they're not doing it. So
Raid is actually, like, from a numerical point of view, it's a very strong Ascendancy. It's just boring as fuck. It's
exactly.
incredibly
I'll give
boring.
you that. It doesn't have a lot of identity. I'll give you that.
Right, identity.
I could
But then-
very easily see them introducing like a Void Ascendancy, which has a different rage system. They've already experimented with like alternate rage systems with stuff like Rage, and it sounds very weird now. But think about the fact that in PoE 2 we have like shapeshifting, and in PoE 2 one of the Ascendancies lets you use any melee skill with bows. Like they're doing weird shit. So the idea of there being like a different resource, I think, is a lot more straightforward than sweep with a bow. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's weirder to me than these guys have got like a purple ball rather than a blue ball.
I'm just saying that like with the stuff that they have shown us, it's not like anything crazy out of the ordinary for me, but it is really cool. Like I would go, oh, that's an idea that we haven't seen before, and it totally works. That's cool.
No.
But then, yeah, like hitting shit with a bow, I guess that is pretty unique.
I mean, they could even make completely new sets of skills that would work in conjunction with each other and generate its own resource. It's not something we really had before, because how do you manage that when you have one main skill in PoE? So they never really had the space to do it.
True.
But when you add like 13 active skills or whatever we can have, all of a sudden, like huge playground to just add all these new skills that work with each other.
I mean, we technically already have it with Chain, Hook, and Berserk. We have a skill that generates rage, and we have a skill that spends rage.
Right. I mean, and that's kind of the extent that you can allow it to work right now in PoE 1, right? Because you can't really, it's very hard to find the space to where you could have multiple skills where you would, combine them.
Yeah, the majority of resource generation effects are passive, like Unleash charges or Void Shot charges for Void Fletcher, that sort of thing. They're not really, you purposely do a thing to build the charge and then you expend it. It's just, here, have some charges over time.
Also, because you wouldn't be able to customize it properly either, right? Because you don't have the gem slots.
Well, yeah, but we'll have the gem slots in PoE too.
Exactly, which is why it could happen in PoE too.
I could very much see a system where it's kind of like anyone who played Shadow Priest when they had Shadow Orbs, and it's kind of like you've got some kind of cooldown-ish ability, and you generate a resource, and it's kind of like it'd be like another layer of like Vaal skills kind of thing. I could see us having like we have a lot of skills that should like almost do this. So instead of it being a case where like what's the fucking Ice Nova? Yeah, Ice Nova. It's like Ice Nova casts on Frostbolt. Right? Instead of that, imagine if Frostbolt was like a resource. Like you use ice skills and you save up Frostbolts and then it's like you unleash them. Kind of what Discharge is with charges. Like we kind of already have this already with a lot of skills. There's lots of little things they could build up. There's actually like a few things from WoW that I could see in PoE working quite nicely. Like Frost Mages have a thing where casting frost skills, you build up these like icicles above your head, and you have a skill that like unleashes all the icicles. I could see stuff like that working in PoE quite nicely. Where you've kind of got some kind of like passive generation based on a main skill, and then you've got like I've got my big Hadouken button.
You know what?
And then
There's the new poison skill that interacts with whirling blades. Like
Yeah,
they have
exactly.
going.
Yeah, the more we're talking about this, the more I think we're not giving PoE credit, because there's also Plague Bearer too,
Yep.
which is another
Actually,
thing.
I'm playing BV poison right now. I should have thought of that.
Blade Blast. Like they recently just added this with like they're just like, oh, by the way, blades are a system now. Like they've added blades are a resource.
Stormbind is a one skill bundle of Stormbind and Rune Blast.
What a fucking weird skill. What the fuck?
It's really cool. It's really cool. Okay. I haven't played it yet. I want to play it. But it's really fucking cool.
Fuck you, Octavian. Dude, this is so
bad, but
cool.
It is weird.
Haven't played it, but like it's good. It's good.
I don't know if it's good. Screw it.
You might love it. Oh,
it's cool.
You might love it, buddy.
It's a cool. It's definitely a cool ability. I just don't know, like.
Yeah.
I threw it onto the Archmage build for a moment, and Archmage applies its mana cost to each tick, so I got 1 square.
Channeling skills in Archmage is an interesting thing.
Yeah.
I still have yet to try a Winter Orb Archmage setup. I think that can actually work, even with the mana spent, but
you probably need Unleash or something.
You can't unleash channel.
You can
channeling.
Oh, right.
But like on paper, the idea is like you spend all of your mana for the duration it lasts, and then you get your mana back when it runs out. Then it makes sense that in theory there should be like a threshold where it works.
Well, that's the thing about Archmage too, that like damage effectiveness is so huge, and obviously damage effectiveness on Winter Orb is like its biggest strength. So.
Isn't it weird that Archmage is a flat raw amount of damage rather than like top end or something, as compared to basically every other source of lightning?
OP things about it that it's just like guaranteed damage.
It makes sense for lightning. Finally, I think it gets rid of them having to like rebalance every single one of those skills. Because at some point they did the whole thing where they were like, "We are normalizing lightning damage, guys. Here's Stormcall, Shock Nova. We'll let you know about the next ones." 4 years later, we're like still here. So I think this is like their solution to that. But
no, I don't think that has anything to do with each other. I think that the whole Archmage thing, because the guy who designed it plays what's it called? He plays Media in XL, right? And in that game, it's just very the way that mana I don't remember the mana skills work in that game is with this. It's just like very it's the same thing as in PoE. It's just not lightning. It's just like mana damage, and it does 1-to-1, and it scales up with your mana. So it's like it's probably derived from there, and not as a solution to lightning damage.
Do we out of interest the way that lightning damage works? I don't mind it until you get really unlucky a couple of times, and it's like
I never feel it anymore. It's like the most that you can get unlucky with it is like arc, and it still shits on everything. So I don't
When
know.
I had a league or two where I only played lightning trap, and I would notice it like once every
Right.
100 maps. But it would piss me the fuck off because I'd throw a volley of traps and like nothing would happen, and I'd be like, "This is a bit awkward." Throw another volley, one shot the next 8 screens. But then every now and again you just have like one map where you're like, "This isn't doing anything. Why isn't this? Oh, now we're good. Now we're good. Okay."
Hey man.
I don't mind that. That's okay. Having like inconsistent damage as a type of damage, especially when it is the best damage type in PoE, in terms of actually generating the most amount of damage.
I think I would like it if we didn't already have crit. I think that's especially like when you're playing like a lightning build transitioning into crit and your crit chance is still a bit rough, then you get double fucked. Because it's kind of like, I rolled 2 damage and it didn't crit. You know, and you're like, ooh.
I think my biggest issue with lightning right now is how it just falls off a cliff when you start going into endgame. Like once you start doing bossing, and it just becomes completely like, well, just LE focus instead. Like it loses that whole flavor of shock.
Yeah.
Shock.
You know.
Well, they did buff shock, like shock.
Yeah, but
I mean, you have supercharge now too.
Yeah.
true.
Supercharge is pretty major.
But not for the shock part though.
No.
Are the numbers? I've looked back when they originally made the change to shock threshold for like they added another stat basically that just scales boss ailment thresholds as a multiplier. I couldn't find the numbers on that, and I haven't looked recently. Do any of you guys know if they released that at any point? Like what that multiplier is?
Oh, it's boss specific, I think. So I think it's something like I think what's his face? The big bad dude we have now, the baddest dude.
Cyrus?
Yeah.
Kuduku?
He has like what does he have like 100 million on like 8 in terms of life, and his modifier is like assuming 50 million total life. It's something like that.
I don't
That doesn't.
know.
I have no idea. I don't fucking do that sort of damage. What are you talking about? If I get to 1 million on a build on SSF, I'm just like, hell yeah, dude, this build's the craziest shit ever.
Apparently it's a 25 million threshold or something.
Right. Okay. So
What?
it's still quite high.
Pretty high.
It's really hard to like make lightning work against it. And the thing is, like, if you're like building around actually getting your shock up there, you might as well just be building around damage in a different way. It's like regardless of the shock, it's just silly.
I hate this conversation as an Ignite player. You fucking ever tried to fucking kill any bosses with Ignite, dog? You think shock's bad? Like, what's up?
I know.
I've seen some burning.
I played EA last, or was it last league? Yeah, last league.
You
Yeah,
know
but it was
what's
good.
This is you mentioned EA, and this is cool, and it's not at all related to the previous discussion. But you can actually make explosive arrow do some decent bleeds because it doesn't convert the
sake.
Oh.
You can't do Ignite EA
Wait,
anymore,
let him
but you
talk.
can go fucking bleed.
I want to hear it.
The more multiplier to hits and ailments will, obviously scale any ailment, and the damage you get per level is the fire that's added, but it doesn't actually have any conversion. So if you use a good Fizzbow with the bleed mod and stack a bunch of fuses, you can actually get a pretty decent bleed with the explosive arrow.
How much is it per?
I think it's like 3% or something more. I might be misremembering. I haven't looked at it in a while.
Yeah, it is 3% more.
Per
Damn.
fuse.
Oh my god, that's actually crazy because
You can
me and
actually get quite good bleed out of it, yes.
because me and Waggle played 2 different totem builds, and I settled on the explosive arrow, and he ended up settling on the one of the, I think it was shrapnel shot or something, ballista thing.
Yeah.
But the truth is that I think his build with the old way it worked would have been better if he just scaled bleed for the bow stuff and used explosive arrow. Huh. That's a funky thing.
Before we get into the variety talk, have any of you played Vulkan? PoE with Vulkan.
Yes.
that is. How is it?
It blew my dick off.
It's great.
Yeah, the improvements are massive for me.
I mean, I thought it's not gonna affect me at all because my performance like pretty good. So I was like, I'm chilling, double PC. I really never ran into FPS issues. So I didn't like mess around with it at all. And then I enabled it, bruh.
Oh man.
It's not an FPS thing. Like it just makes the game run so much smoother. It's ridiculous. I don't know. It has something to do with like some screen tearing bullshit something. My brain was melting, so I didn't quite pick up what Chad was explaining. But yeah, it feels completely different for me. It's amazing.
I did a little bit of like, I don't know if does anyone here like have a good understanding of Vulkan? I did a little bit, so I understand a little bit how it works.
No idea.
I have no idea.
Okay,
Ziggy purposely walked out. He's like, "Fuck this, I don't know."
So like DirectX and Vulkan, all these different things. These are it's an API. It's an interface that makes all your components interact with the game engine, right? So DirectX used to be. So the way that works, it's basically a bad bureaucracy. So let's say you go into a restaurant and then everyone orders at the same time, and it's like, oh, send it over there, right? And it all gets cluttered. And in PoE, with so many things going on, it makes a lot of sense when you have like when there's a ton of things coming in on your screen, sending the packets the right way and making sure that your CPU with multiple cores, they can all work together to solve this problem fast. So it doesn't get into like this one little pipeline where everything gets cluttered and congested. That's kind of what it does. It removes a lot of congestion from PoE, meaning that things run smoother.
I thought that was very good, Nicky. That was well done. I don't know if that's actually how it works. You could have been completely wrong, but I think you did a very good job explaining how it works.
But yeah, it's basically it sends information around in a much smarter way, and it makes sure that your system is more optimal. Like it optimizes, like better.
Yeah, I mean, for
also,
me, again,
secondly, Vulkan versus DirectX. It's an open source, what's it called, API or whatever. So it works with like Mac OS and Linux.
That's good.
I saw a comment in the Reddit thread about MP's clip talking about how a guy was playing on Linux and his FPS like quadrupled or something. He was at 30 and he went up to 120.
Zai was saying in chat earlier it runs a lot better on Linux.
And another note here, to a lot of games out there have like had Vulkan in there. I say, oh, look at me, we have Vulkan. We're like, this is the new hot stuff to do. But the way to make it actually work well is for the game engine to be designed around it. So the more time they get to spend on it, the better it'll be. So we could probably expect that it's going to be even better. It's not just a thing you slap on and say, now we have Vulkan.
True.
It's like a new language that's just much smoother that you then build into.
I'm sold. That's for sure. It really
I'm pretty excited.
Big difference.
I haven't played any PoE in a while, so I'm looking forward to going into the next league with no performance issues. Probably not, but you never know. It would be fun. But worth mentioning for anyone who wasn't aware, so this new system, it's not enabled by default. You need to turn it on in the options. So if you're playing it after the patch, like, my system isn't any better, dude, check that you actually have it enabled. I imagine there's probably a lot of like angry emails Chris has gotten, like, fuck you, my performance is still dog shit. And it's like, have you tried turning it on? Yeah, because I imagine they can't have it on by default because there'll be some people that it's less stable for. So then it'd be one of those things like they've nerfed someone's performance or something. But yeah. It's not better on every system. Yeah. If you have a system that can't take advantage of it, and it's like new as well. So yeah, it's beta.
It's not a guarantee. Yeah.
And yeah, turn it on in the menu, not in the game. That'd be one thing. But yeah. Before we go full variety, are there any other PoE things you'd like to discuss? As in, like, maybe looking back at Delirium at all? Or, like, fuck it, let's just go other games?
Yeah, I agree. Fuck it.
Okay, then, well, in that case, I'll talk about
when we're talking about Delirium.
I'll talk about what I've been doing recently. Because we technically still haven't finished the intro again. We have to finish the intro before we can talk about the thing.
2-hour intro.
Yeah. So I took a week off. I'd been quite ill, and read all the Witcher books, and then because I read it. I used to read constantly as a child. I was one of those like kids who my parents had to tell me to stop reading.
Tarke, no, you're doing the thing why people hate you, dude. You
Yes.
gotta talk about like you can't be talking about how smart you are. Right now.
No. But I used to read all the time, but I haven't read in a couple of years. So I wanted to get back into reading. So once I finished it, I was on like a crazy like I have to play RPGs. It's just like I had the vibe to, like I don't want to play PoE, I just want to play RPGs. Otherwise known as I quit Path of Exile. I've had a lot of people asking why I've quit PoE.
Of course.
Terrible game. I'm a full-time Witcher 1 streamer now. So I played Outer Worlds because I'd never played it, which was a pretty good game. It was like maybe like a 7 out of 10. I would say it's if you like that genre, you'll have fun with it. But it was just kind of like, yeah, it was alright. And then I said sod it and bought the entire Witcher series. I'd never played 1 and 2. I'd only played 3 before. And went back, played the first one, loved it. Like, I think that game is easily like an 8 out of 10. I think it holds up. I had way more fun playing Witcher 1 than I did with
Whoa, what's a 9?
Okay, so the way that I rate video games, a 5 out of 10 game is like it works. It's fine. It's serviceable. 6 out of 10 is like, okay, I nearly enjoyed this. There are a couple of things which are alright, but I don't think they executed. 7 out of 10 is like, yes, I would recommend this to anyone who likes that genre. So it's like, if you like the genre of that game, I think that's like a must-play for that genre. 8 out of 10 is like, this is genuinely a really good game I will recommend to anyone just because of the game it is. Then when you're getting to like the 9 out of 10 to like the 10 out of 10s, that's when it's like, this is a perfect must-play video game. And I don't think there is a 10 out of 10 video game. It's nearly impossible to have a perfect game, but I guess like a 10 out of 10 video game would be the stuff that like everyone just agrees is amazing. So I don't know, like Ocarina of Time or something, you know. But like, I'd say most things are like a 9 out of 10. But I think Witcher 1 is genuinely a really amazing game, even for when it came out. I actually had more fun playing Witcher 1 than I had playing Witcher 2. Because Witcher 2 was a game, you could tell it was made in like the early like 2010s, where every video game, like, we have to have a quick time event. And you have to have a button that prompts you when you want to climb up a ledge. There's nothing I hate more in a game where it's like, I want to go over there. And you're just like, you're walking around objects waiting for a prompt to let you progress. And you're like, you're pressing the button and I'm in front of the door, but the game hasn't registered I'm in front of the fucking door. And there are just lots of awkward things like that, like the boss design as well. One of the first fights, you're against this giant tentacled monster. And you're like, oh, this should be really cool. How do you defeat this giant tentacled monster? You need to stand directly beneath its tentacle slams, drop a rune on the floor, because the tentacle has like a glowy bit. If that part connects, it can't move. You hack off the tentacle. There's like 6 tentacles. You go through all of that. You then hide behind a rock. You've then got to run, avoiding slams, but the hitboxes are completely scuffed, like really badly scuffed. You get to the end, and then it's a quick time event, and you kill it, and it's just like...
No, please continue.
Yeah, it was great.
But my input on this is don't listen to Tarke. He's objectively wrong. Witcher 1's gameplay is absolutely fucking awful.
Here we go.
Okay, so if you haven't played Witcher 1, the way that Witcher 1 works, it's a system that I could see working now for a lot of like phone games or like Android or iPads and stuff. Okay, generally the way the combat system works.
No, but it's good.
The way the combat system works is you've got 3 stances. You've got like heavy stance, light stance, group stance. If there's 3 or more enemies, group stance does like more damage than any other stance. If they're like a fast enemy, use light stance. If they're a big enemy, use heavy stance. So those are the stances you have. And like you'll get attacked by like 1 heavy guy, some light. So you gotta like manage your stances. The way you attack is you click, and then you wait for the screen to tell you to click again. And then you click again. if you click too early, you break your attack chain, and like nothing happens. And if you spam click, you never get a successful click. You never get a successful attack. So it's like you attack once, wait for the prompt, attack again. It was really weird. It took me like an hour to get used to it. Once I got used to it, it was fine. Like the combat. No, let me say the combat didn't get in the way of the story. No one is playing. No one is playing Witcher 1 because of the gameplay. They're playing it because of the story and the RPG elements. However, compared to Witcher 2, the Witcher 2 boss fights are awful, and the actual combat got in the way of my enjoyment of the game. It's like people who don't like who like Mass Effect 1 or don't like Mass Effect 1. Mass Effect 1 had a super basic shooting system. It wasn't a good shooter by any means, but it was good enough that it didn't get in the way of the story. So it was serviceable.
Look at Noogie. Oh no, he's smiling now.
No, but I honestly think that I honestly think that everyone at some point has played a video game where you're like, the combat isn't that great, but you're not playing it for the combat. I would argue that PoE for a long time was one of those games. Like, we all agreed Diablo 3 had better combat, but we played Path of Exile when it first came out because it had better systems. But the actual gameplay of PoE when it first came out was dog shit. But
the difference is GDG seemed like they had played a video game before. When I played PoE, I was like, yeah, these guys have played a video game before. They know how to make like combat in a video game. Witcher 1, it's like the developers had never seen another video game ever. So they're like, what would video game combat look like if we were to invent it now?
Apparently it was meant to be like an ARPG or something, and then they changed the development like last. It was their first video game. I think they did a really good job for their first video game. But genuinely, okay, maybe I'll lower it to a 7 out of 10. But I genuinely, no, I genuinely
keep going, Ziggy. Yeah,
I will never lower which one than 7 out of 10. Because also, it was like the engine they made it on. It was like a Neverwinter Nights mod or something. It's like it's insane that they even managed to make it. And if you've read the books, it's such an amazing like love letter to the books.
There you go.
The atmosphere, the skyboxes, like, it visually holds up. The faces look janky as hell, but like their skyboxes, their water effects. If it's raining in the game, all the civilians run for cover in towns.
In real life.
No. Like
Wow,
the NPCs react to weather, which for a game like there are games now that don't have that. A lot of games, but like that's really like for when it came out, that's insane.
I really would have liked to. Exactly, I would have loved to hear your take if you hadn't read the books before playing it.
A 6? A 7?
Well, the thing which is interesting about that is the first Witcher game completely bastardized the story of the books.
Whoa.
No, the first Witcher game story is completely backwards. It really... Okay, so...
Wait, the second one is the love letter?
No, the first one is a love letter, but it completely bastardizes the story of the books. The third one kind of brings it back. This is no spoiler discussion whatsoever, but, okay, the books are all about Geralt, Ciri, Yennefer, right? They're like the main dudes. Ciri isn't mentioned at all in the first one. Geralt comes back. People are like, oh, I haven't seen you in a while. What happened to you? They don't mention Ciri. They introduce a new character called Alvin, who's basically Ciri 2.0, and they kind of like half-tread Ciri's like entire character arc, gave him like the elder blood. It's really weird. They basically just like half yoink a character, and it's not until the end of the second one they're like, oh, Yennefer, by the way. Yeah.
So is this a love letter in an abusive relationship or what?
Well, okay, no, it's still a love letter because they did a really good job recreating the world, and apparently, like in early development, it wasn't meant to be about Geralt. It was meant to be following a different Witcher, and then they decided like halfway through, actually, fuck it, we're gonna make it about Geralt, and then they had to like backtrack everything in. But yeah.
So 6 out of 10.
No, it's a 7.5. It's gone back up. It's a 7.5
Wait,
out of 10.
Tell us
Hold
what
on.
it corresponds to, though.
Say that again.
We're getting confused now.
Tarke hates Siri. That's fucked up, Tarke.
I don't hate Siri. Siri's lit.
That's very, very rude.
I don't like Alvin. Alvin's a whiny little bitch. Anyone who's played Witcher 1 agrees Alvin is a whiny little bitch. Fuck that kid.
So Siri, then I like it. Okay.
Siri's cool. So yeah, so I read all the books. I did an entire playthrough of the Witcher series. I'm about halfway through Witcher 3. I'd never played the DLCs, so I played it when it first came out. So I'm really looking forward to finishing the main campaign, getting onto the DLCs, because everyone keeps telling me the DLCs are better than anything else in that game. And it's been really enjoyable, because this is my first playthrough of the series, having read all the books and played the earlier games. So my appreciation of everything is like way up here.
What did you think about the TV series, Tarke?
I thought the TV series was okay. I think the people who hate it are being pretty unfair to it. I think the people who say it's the best thing ever are also being like, let's be real. I think it's good enough. I think it does a very good job of setting the foundations for season 2. I would say that like it's maybe like a 6 out of 10, maybe a 7 out of 10 if you're really invested into the universe.
What?
Yeah, because it's like, okay, if you know, if you
How do
know,
you even go to 6?
no. But okay,
Oh
but let's just
God.
no. The choreography is
game's
great.
better?
The choreography is great, right? The choreography is great. The actors were all good. The storyline is a bit convoluted with the weird time jumps, but they had
Yeah,
this
they didn't
awkward
execute that
situation,
well.
and the
Right.
showrunner talked about this, and I really envy her. She said basically, okay, so what a lot of people wanted us to do was have the first season only be about Geralt and nothing else. The problem is, Geralt isn't really the main character in The Witcher. It's kind of Ciri. Like, she is the
rogue.
main big deal. So the issue you would have is if you made season 1 of the show only about Geralt, and then by season 2, he's like only there for half the episodes. Everybody, the fuck is this show? This is bullshit. You ruined it. So they basically had this awkward situation where it's like, okay, we're gonna have the first season where we just establish all the characters, we set the groundwork, and then we're good for the next season. So I think, yeah, it was good enough.
But it had a toss a coin to your Witcher, so a 4 then.
I think it was good.
The first time I
groundwork.
heard that, I was like, "Oh man, that's kind of like a banger." And then like everyone kept singing it and everything. I was like, "Oh god, I hate this song so much now." Kept hearing it again and again. Yes.
I will say though,
I dig the message though.
yeah,
Definitely.
during
Witcher.
during my break, I binged all of the Mandalorian. That's a fucking good show. That's Pog.
I hate
Mandalorian
Star Wars, but I like
sick.
that. I
It's
did
really
like
good.
that.
It's
Wait,
really
what
good.
Wait,
is it?
how can
I
you
like
how can you dislike Star Wars but like Mandalorian? It's like to me, Mandalorian is
I-
everything that was right with the early Star Wars, and like it removes all of the wrong with the new ones. So
Dude, I
How
just,
do you even
I-
watch Mandalorian?
Nothing
It's on Disney Plus.
on
whatever they
Disney
call it.
Plus. Yeah.
How do you
Bit-
get that? Because I
bit
tried
lord.
like figuring out.
It's,
But I tried
they-
getting it. It was like impossible in
No,
Denmark.
it wasn't in Europe until recently. It like released in Europe in the last like
Oh.
month or 2. Also,
Nice.
I want to ask a question because the whole time we've had this conversation, Octavian's just had this like look of you weren't allowed near televisions as a child. Have you ever seen anything? Because you kind of like, what is a Star what?
I've watched the original Star Wars movies. Yes.
Okay.
I've seen one of the more recent ones too. I've not seen The Mandalorian, so I'm not very caught up on modern day Star Wars.
Don't worry, I haven't seen the Mandalorian either, but I really want to.
It's good.
you're a big show
was-
watcher,
you know-
Ziggy. I'm
I
surprised.
am.
We'll get in a Discord call and watch it sometime.
No, I
Aw,
haven't
date.
pirated anything for forever. I watch. I actually buy
Good
the
boy.
things these days.
Good boy.
So
Yeah,
Give
Mando
your-
was Mando was good. Yeah, despite really not liking Star Wars, really, like I've just never found anything in any of the movies ever, and not even the originals, that hooked me in. I was just like,
Really?
they were watchable and like
Mm.
mildly entertaining at times. New ones were like awful. When I tried to watch some of those, I haven't seen some of the new ones because they were like so bad. I couldn't do it. But that series is fun, man. It's like space western kind of Firefly vibes. Like it's just good fun adventures. Each episode was just like it kind of felt a bit like a new adventure. I was like, yeah, I can super dig this. If Star Wars was more like that, hell yeah, I'd be into it. That's good fun.
Wait, did you compare it to Firefly?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mandalorian's
wow.
a lot like Firefly.
Oh my
It's like,
god.
it's
I
like
have to
Goonies
see it
meet
now.
Firefly. Yeah.
It's really good.
Oh my god.
And each, what Ziggy said, like each episode could be like a standalone film. A really good example.
Yeah, you
of
could
that.
watch. You could watch the third episode. You'd have a good time,
Yeah.
even if you didn't say the rest of it.
Just don't watch the Bill Burr one, because that one's just not.
That was the weakest one of all of them. I will agree.
Holy shit!
The thing which was funny about it is, so we only got Disney Plus in the UK like a month or two back, and I didn't know that they were still dropping them like one a week. They're all up there now. So when I started watching it, only the first 4 were up. So for there was a good like 20 minutes. I was like, oh, did it end on the 4th episode? And I was like, oh. And it actually could, if they wanted, they could have stopped the season there. I'm like, oh, that was actually pretty cool. I really enjoyed that. And then I was like, oh wait, no, the next one comes out next week, and then I watched the whole thing. I was like, oh, this is cool. But yeah, each episode holds up. It works. It really does work.
And the soundtrack, ooh, so good. All things really good.
But
sorry, I don't like Star Wars movies, chat. I'm sorry.
The last
really
set
offended.
of Star Wars movies were particularly yikes. Like,
yeah, there was one. It was like I can't remember. It was Jesus.
I think your dog wants to talk about how shit the new Star Wars films were.
Like really like Star Wars. There was one movie I mildly enjoyed, which was like a kind of recent-ish one. I can't remember the name. It was like Rogue One. Rogue One was kind of just like that was fun action schlock. It was like I was like there's explosions. It was pretty like cinematography. Like the environments are cool, and I was like, yeah, that's just fun action. I was like, yeah, okay, I can dig that. But yeah. I do like Star Trek, yeah. I think for me, it's more like
I wasn't gonna
ask. But do you like new Star Trek or do you like old Star Trek?
No, fuck no. No, it's like
the series, the Star Trek.
It's not like a Star Trek versus Star Wars thing for me. I'm not like a Trekkie versus a Star Wars fan sort of thing. It's just like I think in sci-fi for me, it's more like I like my sci-fi to kind of pose questions or ask kind of explore interesting weird topics. And older Star Treks did that a lot, which I really enjoyed. Like, what if this was the world? And I'm like, they go to a world, and it's like, oh, what if Earth was like this? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's interesting. I want to see what if Earth was like that. That's cool.
So you don't like Fast and the Furious in space, which is kind of what the new shit is.
Hey, Fast and Furious is kind of fun. I don't mind a Fast and Furious every now and then.
No.
But a Tokyo Drift. It's like. I mean that is what it is. It's cars drifting around and stuff. Like I don't expect anything more. I don't expect deeper questions about humanity from Fast and the Furious.
I can't stop looking at Octavian. It just looks like he's fucking curiously googling. It's like, which Earth? Fast and Furious.
What is television?
Oh,
So
no,
many things that aren't Path of Exile. What?
Octavian is the guy in chat on his alt Twitch account saying, when are they going to talk about PoE again? Fuck this shit.
I've been playing Noida. That's fun.
Wait, you've been playing what, sorry?
What? Noida. Noita.
Oh, what's
Noida.
that?
It's a little roguelike dungeon. Those are basically the only games I play that aren't Path of Exile, is roguelike dungeon crawlers and like roguelike card games. And Monster Train I'm actually looking into. I might play that some. But did you ever play those like Fall Sand games that were online as a kid? I used to get down to the library with my friends and play them after school. We had like pillars of pixels and you could set them on fire or you could make them wet and move them around and stuff. That's like that plus a dungeon crawler is what Noida is. And you get different wands that can like shoot bombs or saw blades or fire, and you can kill yourself in so many different ways by accident. It's great. And if you go high enough up in the sky, you get to a moon level that's made out of cheese.
That sounds
Wait, what?
Yep.
Sounds like
I don't know about that.
Yep. You have to get like upgrades and stuff that allow you to float for longer in order to be able to actually reach it, but you can reach the moon. And then you can reach like another layer that's beyond the moon, and you can keep going and you can keep going, and it just goes forever. And you can go over to the side, and there's like you can go beyond the dungeon, and there's a pyramid, and then you can go beyond that, and there's
I've been there. I
Yeah,
didn't know you could go
Like,
up. What
the
fuck?
the
How
game
do
is
you do it?
massive. There's also alchemy where you can take different things and put them together, and like the game doesn't teach you any of it at all. But if you happen to randomly put this one material on another in the dungeon, suddenly you have gold.
Yep.
It's really
it's really like so it's you get these ones and you get a skill. So it might be like shoots a fireball, and then you get a bunch of different modifiers like PoE support gems. It's so that'll instantly be familiar to you, and you'll be like, oh, okay. You'll as a PoE player, you'll have some ideas about sort of weird stuff you can do. Really creative game. I don't know if you really explained what it is, but yeah, it's like
guess
a
I did
weird
very
physics
well.
slash interactivity. Like, how do these different elements interact? What happens if I set this pile of gunpowder on fire?
But
Oh,
it's
fun. That's what happens.
it's not the super basic elements that you might be expecting of like, you know, you can combine earth with fire or something. Like there's weird stuff that you can find. Like there's a liquid you can find in pools sometimes that transforms you randomly into any monster that you might find in the dungeon. And you can like bottle that and throw it at enemies and turn that enemy into another random enemy, which usually just makes them more deadly. So isn't actually very useful, but you can do that if you want. And you know, you can get guns that shoot black holes, and not guns, wands. I kept calling them guns when I was playing them on stream. It bothered people
Americans, man.
in my chat.
Gotta make it about guns all the time.
It's a giant sandbox, and it's all about trying to, you know, just make cool stuff happen in the sandbox.
That
My
sounds cool.
play a
favorite thing
science
from this
game.
conversation was Ziggy going, "You can go up."
You can't.
I have no idea.
But does it have a rhythm-based combat system?
Not that I've discovered yet, but I
Can't be
haven't
that good.
haven't found all of the ones.
Okay.
Wait, rhythm based?
That was a Witcher 1 throwback.
Oh no.
Wait, did you ever end up talking about Witcher 3?
Oh no.
Oh, I didn't talk about Witcher 3. It's good.
Okay.
There's not really that much to say about Witcher 3, to be honest. It's just a good game. I honestly think though that there's a YouTuber called Joseph Anderson that I recommend everyone subscribe to. He makes, sorry to anyone on this podcast who makes YouTube content, gladly no one here does, sorry Ziggy. He is by far my favorite YouTuber. I randomly discovered him a couple of months ago, and everything he makes is pure gold. He does these super analytical, like multiple hour long just episodes. He just like, he takes on like every single part of the video game down, just like to the tiniest moments. And he's just started a Witcher series, and his video on Witcher 1 is like 4.5 hours long. Like he's good.
He's the guy who made a Fallout 76 video that was 1.5 hours and was just a compilation of various bugs that he had encountered in the game.
Oh, that was that guy?
Yeah, bugs and
Damn.
stuff.
But Tarke, how come? So, what rating would you give Witcher 3?
I can't
Sick.
rate it until I've played the DLC.
I see.
But like
oh my God,
that's
ethical
like
reviewer.
that's close to perfect. Although it's got lots of awkward little things in there that I feel like people excuse or ignore because of how good of a game it is. Like the combat in that game is, again, it's like, it's serviceable, it's good enough. The way that a lot of the small systems in it don't work, like the way that oils work in that game. So if you've somehow never played it or never seen it, you see a undead enemy. You hit the necrophage oil, so you do more damage against undeads. It lasts for like 20 fucking hits. And the way that you do that is you've got to constantly like go into our inventory, do this, do that, all this bullshit. And there's lots of just like small... Fuck off, Raiz. There's lots of small things in there that's just like actually really kind of jank. And the earlier games did it a lot better. So yeah. But it's a good game. Every game in that series does something better than the others, which I find very interesting.
So you don't like the shoe guy anymore?
Shoe guy's cool. Tyler?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
But
cool.
you said he was your favorite before, and now Long Video Andy is your favorite.
Brad... Oh, I thought you meant the spy in Witcher 3 who pretends to be a shoemaker. Brad Hall? Sorry. Brad Hall is my second favorite YouTuber. He's the shoe guy on YouTube.
I see.
But Joseph Anderson's rank 1. He's everyone after they finish watching this amazing episode of Baeclast, obviously, should seriously subscribe to this guy. His content is the kind of content that makes you want to make video games because of the way that he talks about them. He's really good.
You're making a video game?
I've toyed around with the idea. Like, I've spoken to companies about working for them for stuff. But most of the when I first like you know, when you're a kid, you're like, oh, I want to make video games, and I was like, oh, I want to make video games. Making video games would be cool. But then for a long time, I was like, oh, I'd want to work in community management because what I do is basic community management with the podcast. I've always been, oh, I want to work in community management. I want to work in community management. But like, watching his videos make you want to do design because of the way that he talks about it. So now I'm much more like, oh, if someone gave me an option to work on the design team, yeah, I'll do it. You know, if I manage to do a carve and get a job with a random company, it's like, this is what I don't like in Path of Exile. Put it in this game. You know. But,
For this personal vendetta.
yeah.
Vendetta fueled game design.
But,
What's next on the variety cast?
Terraria.
Go on, Nugget. You can talk
Oh,
now.
yeah.
Spearhead that.
Speaking about games, like on a list, let's hold to Targe's 7, 8, 9, and 10 out of 10. I do find it very hard to give anything 10 out of 10 because it's very like dependent on like if you even like that genre. But if you like that genre, I'll probably give Terraria like so far 9, maybe 10, probably 10 out of 10 in that genre. I mean, it's just I thought I would hate it. I thought Terraria was some kind of like 2D Minecraft with like The Sims and Animal Crossing mix where you like go in and build fluffy things and look cute. Then I played it and I got my ass handed to me and I've died 220 times so far. So yes, it is. It's just great. You know, it's a building, exploring, kind of like sandbox, but also there is something you do as well. I don't know. It was. It's just been great, and it's a game for like what 2011. It's been out there for like forever, and I just didn't know.
It just got a big new update.
2011.
Yeah.
It was
Don't
that
know.
years ago.
Like the last update.
Mm-hmm. Like there's a new update like 1.4, but the thing is I have no idea what that did because I've never played the game before and I'm not letting chat spoil anything for me, or at least I'm trying to. So I'm kind of going in there with whenever anyone spoils anything, it just gets like blasted in chat. So
Nice.
so there's like so many things I have no idea, you know. I mean, so like there's been a lot of corruption spreading, and I didn't know I could buy like a purification potion off the off a vendor, right? So it's like I spent like it's like 3 days in before I found it on the vendor.
Damn.
And people have been like, you just need to do that. I'm like, I don't know. It took me 3 days. I like obsidian, you know, so that's like a lot of materials you need to dig down and find to upgrade your gear. And I needed, so I found what was the first thing? You have like one material and then you need obsidian combined with it.
It's been a while since I played the Demonite. Is that what it was called? Or
Yeah. And so I spent like, I don't know, I spent like a full day on trying to like search for obsidian. What is obsidian? How do I find it? Oh, it's Hellstone. Yeah, right. And I was like, okay, I'm lost here. So I'm like, what is obsidian? Because I'm like, maybe there's a hint in like, so obsidian is apparently like something that's created when lava meets water. I'm like, oh, so I had to like combine. I had to like throw the water down into the lava, and then poof, obsidian appeared. And I've been like all the way down to hell, going like all the way from like one side to the other. Where's this goddamn obsidian? And it's like something you create. So I spent a lot of time on that. Yeah.
I have a question for the Terraria players because I tried to play it, but I haven't really been. I played it years ago and like played for a while and like had moderate amount of fun with it. I tried to play it again recently with the new update. How do you get past the fact that it takes like 10 years to dig dirt at the start of the game? Like that is so slow. It takes a long time to dig around and do much at the beginning. How do you get past that? Is that
throw
something you can do
bombs.
early
Small
on, or is
goals.
that like a later thing?
It
Just,
doesn't.
like,
It doesn't take
grind
that
through it?
long though. Yeah. It's like how do you get over how do you get off the beach in PoE?
Speed.
I mean, you're killing monsters right from the start.
Speed in games are a big deal. I've said this before. I whenever I've tried to play Divinity Original Sin, I can't get over how slow the characters move. Whenever I try and play,
I had the same. I would actually agree with Divinity. I had a hard time getting off the ground in that game. Once the ball got rolling, it was like one of the best gaming experiences I've ever had.
I still haven't been able to get past the opening bit because I go into it with the idea like I'm going to commit this time. This game is like D&D. I grew up playing that. Everything I hear about it, I love it. It sounds so cool, and then I just can't get past the opening bit. I can't get the motivation to. I don't know. I have that experience with so many games now. I think PoE like sapped a piece of my soul or something. Like I try to play Hades. I really like it. I like everything about Hades. Here I am not playing Hades 2 days after I buy the game or 3 days after I buy the game. And instead I'm clicking Path of Exile because my finger is inexorably drawn towards Path. It pulls me away.
Hades looks really cool. For anyone who hasn't like heard of it, that I've wanted to play that game for a while now. That's been on my list.
Recommend it.
So beautiful.
Hades.
It's good.
Same people who made Bastion, right?
Yes, Supergiant, one of my like all-time favorite developers. Basically everything they've made I've enjoyed. And I'm really, really disappointed in myself that I haven't been able to put aside the time to actually beat a run of Hades. Like not like go into the end game or whatever you'd call it and start getting really good at it, but just like actually beat a full run of the thing. Because I loved Bastion and I loved Pyre and I loved Transistor. And I've played through all those, but I just can't like focus on something that isn't PoE for long enough.
Is it a roguelike?
Yeah.
It's
roguelite.
Roguelite, yeah. There's some progression.
What's the actual like difference between roguelike and roguelite?
Oh god.
We
will argue about this.
The difference there is pretty straightforward, I'd say. A roguelite has systems of progression that are maintained through death. A roguelike doesn't. Like if you're roguelike, you're starting from scratch every run.
Every time, yeah.
See, I don't even know about that definition exactly. I would say roguelikes are like your I mean, they're like the game Rogue, so things like Dungeons of Dreadmore and I can't remember the name of the really popular one people play all the time now, but like your old school kind of RPG style things, typically turn-based. Yeah, definitely a lot of like randomized kind of worlds and stuff like that, but very like actual RPGs. Whereas a roguelite could be something like Rogue Legacy or something like Hades, or a completely different genre, but with like that same sort of concept of like each run is its own individual thing. Yeah, you might have carryover progression, but I'd say most of those games, even roguelikes, have that now. Even a lot of roguelikes have at least things you unlock that can appear in future runs.
Language is weird and fickle.
Oh.
I've heard like really intense arguments from both points of view about why the other person is wrong. So I tend to just accept both.
I would pretty firmly put Hades in the roguelite category, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like, I would never call like Slay the Spire wouldn't be a roguelike because it's not like a like old school RPG, right? But it's definitely a roguelite. It has that same sort of concepts of like the individual runs, and you do that run, and then you see how far you can get, and you start a new run that's independent from the previous one.
That was actually one thing that I wanted to ask about when you briefly just touched on endgame earlier. What is the endgame to Minecraft Dungeons?
I don't think there is one.
So what do you
Apart
actually
from, like,
what do you actually do in that game? Like sell it to me, because I know like nothing about it. Like what's
we've
the
had it on
gameplay
screen
like?
this time. We haven't really talked about it. Yeah, have we? I guess we can.
We half talked about it a couple of times. Then we're like, oh, we'll save that for later.
It's like Diablo 2, it's got 3 difficulties. You play through, there's like 8 story missions, I think, and a couple side missions. They're like pretty long, the missions generally might be like 20 to 40 minutes, depending on how long you kind of spend picking your way through them. Like they're fairly long zones. And you kill a bunch of stuff, and then you kill a boss or some sort of encounter at the end of it, and then you leave, and you're good. You get your loot and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, you do those. It's got like a scaling difficulty system, a bit like how Diablo has like Torment 1 through whatever.
Right.
I think it's like 1 through 6 or something, which is basically just like a power level ranking. So harder things can drop higher level gear for you. You can progress faster, but it's harder depending on your current gear. And then once you defeat the final boss on the first difficulty, you unlock the next one. Harder monsters, more item bases appear, and more powerful, like higher power level gear.
So the end game would be like just doing like boss runs on the highest difficulty you can, kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't think there is anything at the moment. There's like this thing that says DLC coming soon, which I kind of hate. On the map already, which is like an island thing. And that sounds kind of like they're going to introduce some sort of greater rift system or something, some sort of rifting system that will look like it'll be DLC, which I'm already kind of like, if you're gonna like add some end game like a couple weeks,
I'm
after
sure it's
launch,
gonna be free.
make a pay or DLC. I don't know. You reckon? I reckon.
My impression of the game is that it's like taken a standing formula for ARPGs of like, what Diablo and Path of Exile and that sort of thing have developed, and hasn't really iterated on it so much as just done a good version of it. Like I from what I've seen in the game and what I've heard from folks playing it, I wouldn't call it like a bad game or not fun, but it doesn't really seem to be offering anything revolutionary.
Yep. It feels great and it's fun. It's kind of like Diablo 3, It feels good, it's fun, it's got some customization, but then kind of limited progression system.
They're breaking some new ground in the simplicity of some of it, in kind of like a good way. Like I'd say the enchantment system and the artifact system as like an idea of like, how do we really simplify in a good way the idea of skills and skill trees?
So how does it work then?
So there's 2 types of gear. There's like your actual gear, which is like your weapon, like melee weapon, a bow, and armor, and everyone gets that, right? And then there's another type of gear that's called artifacts, which are basically your active skills in the game. So like if you wanted a fireball, you'd have to get an artifact that gave you a fireball. Right. So there's like a firecracker and a thing there's like a quicksilver flask basically, and a bubble shield and a heal and all sorts of things. So those are the active skills. And there is a laser, yes. So the actual gear though, like your melee weapon, your bow, and your armor, each have up to 3 enchantment slots, and each enchantment slot rolls a random selection of 2 through 4 different enchantments you can choose from. And every time you level, the only thing you get in this game is an enchantment point. So if you're level 20, you have 20 enchantment points to spend. So you might say get a chest armor, and it'll have 2 enchantment slots, and then a bunch of like maybe you have like 6 to 8 choices of enchantments that you can put in each of those. You can choose only one of them, and you might spend 1 enchantment point to add an enchantment, one of those enchantments, and then like 2 to upgrade it and 3 to upgrade it again. You can upgrade it a couple times. You can probably maybe even see something on screen at some point here. But the enchantments are effectively like a mixture of procs and passive skills. So things like that might trigger like I don't know, there's like a snowball you can put in chest armor that stuns enemies every few seconds, things like that. So there you go. There's the enchantments on screen there, or at least it was probably delayed. But yeah, so that's basically like your skill trees in this game. It's like the idea of taking the idea of skill trees and builds and stuff and refining it into a very simple system. It is very simple, but it's also kind of like elegant in a way. Like it's terribly balanced right now. Some things are just way clearly like super strong, and other things are really, really weak. But that aside, it's kind of like well implemented otherwise, because it's a fun little system. It's pretty simple. It's pretty easy to understand. Like definitely kids and first time action RPG players could get into it and start to discover the idea of the joy of making cool combos and coming up with a build, because you get things like, hey, I found this bow that has multi-shot. Hey, if I put this fork enchantment on it, all of a sudden I'm forking many different projectiles. Now if I'm using my artifact that shoots firecrackers from my bow, all of a sudden my single firecracker, that was like kind of cool, now I shoot 8 firecrackers, and I'm like, whoa! So you start to discover some of those little combos. It'd be great if you had like a younger sibling or a kid that you wanted to like play some action RPGs with, but like, PoE's a bit hard to play with a young one. So definitely much more approachable.
Sounds all right. If you had to like rate it out of 10 or something? How'd you? With those caveats in mind, kind of like you're trying to get
I've
someone
laid out a 10
into it.
ratings for the specific reason that it's not very helpful here. Like, I guess if you have a younger sibling to play it with, or a kid or something you want to play it with, it would probably be like super fun, like a 9 out of 10, great little game to play with them. It's interesting.
It was. Me and Noogie played with Ziz actually, and it felt exactly like that. Very enjoyable.
Even for an experienced action RPG player, especially if you're playing co-op. I haven't played solo. I only played with Amy. And Amy and I are both experienced action RPG players. We still had a lot of fun with it for 2 days. At that point, it's like not really compelled because of the lack of depth. Like, you know, we've got all that to do. Like, there's not much to draw me back in to keep like playing a ton more. But we did have a lot of fun with it in co-op. You know, blowing each other up with creepers and stuff was pretty hilarious.
Is it made like more for co-op, or is it more of like a solo thing? Or
you can definitely do either. It seems fine, but it's a lot more fun in co-op.
Yes, I honestly would say that the main selling point to me for Minecraft Dungeons is the co-op experience, and I think the simplicity of the characters, and then adding the the layer of co-op on top is what really makes the game. That makes it really fun.
That's just because you played with me, Noogie.
Yeah, there's always something to do, with the rest mechanic.
I think the most impressive thing.
I deserve that.
I think the most impressive thing is just that they've like kind of broken some new ground in the idea of like, how can we really simplify some action RPG concepts while still retaining what it is that makes action RPGs tick? So the progression of finding new items and then clicking them together with previous items and coming up with builds. That's all still there in the game, which is impressive given how simple it is. Like, they could have simplified it to this degree and then really lost everything that makes an action RPG apart from physically clicking to move. Like I don't know, I've played too many MMOs where it's like, it's an action RPG MMO, and then you play it and you're like, no, it's not an action RPG.
Yeah.
Like, they've lost, in turning into an MMO, they've lost everything that makes it an action RPG. That's kind of not the case here. It's still an action RPG. It's definitely the genre we love, despite the massive degree that it's been simplified. So that's kind of impressive. I'm very concerned about the fact
very
that
good
DLC is going to be...
analogy, because I feel like the term ARPG is just thrown around and is so meaningless these days.
Yeah,
like everything.
I guess like
it's an
Diablo-like
action
is
system.
probably
It's like...
helpful sometimes. I elaborate with the idea of Diablo-like. It's like, this is the sort of action RPG we're looking for, not like God of War or something.
I'm curious, are there other games or genres that you'd like to see have this treatment? Like a game that
Strategy
you've really
game?
loved, but they're like, oh,
Like
this would be really cool.
RTSs?
Like, yeah, that'd be cool.
I think RTS needs something. Like, the genre has kind of disappeared for the most part. There's a few indies making some kind of cool action RTS stuff recently, but it's really a genre that's died off in a big way. It'd be really just interesting to see a dev who had a really good understanding of what makes RTSs great take the RTS formula and strip it back a bit, like really distill it down to what makes RTSs fun.
Someone
like
said Dota in the chat. Super simple, dude. It's called League of Legends. Come on.
It was
Easy,
success.
In a way, MOBAs are effectively like capturing some of the things people really like about RTSs, but I hate MOBAs.
I like
Want some actual
MOBAs. I
RTSs.
don't like what
wanna
MOBAs
build
make
things.
me.
Build buildings. MOBAs hate me.
I cannot play MOBA. I get so angry.
I mean, it's you can even go one step further than League with that analogy and look at Heroes of the Storm.
I was going to say Heroes of the Storm.
Yeah. League a step even more simplified.
I don't think that was
hitting. And there's some other big change. I don't know. The game is
shared XP. I believe.
Yeah,
the not having items thing was kind of interesting. Heroes was like, I played a bit of it. It was all right, but it was one of those games just like, I'd kind of have fun, but there was no reason to play it. You'd be like, oh, I played that for a bit. It was right. And then you're like...
I really don't think people give Heroes of the Storm enough credit. Because, like, especially if you compare it to Dota, I think the, like, passives maybe would have happened in Dota eventually, but I think that really came from Heroes of the Storm. And also to me, Dota, even though I played Dota 1 and Han, and like I was a big Dota player, and even now in Dota 2, I have like 5,000 hours. It was very boring. But when they started adding objectives like the bounties, like more frequent runes, outposts, all this sort of stuff, all that shit came from HOTS, I think, and it really enhanced the game. So as much as HOTS, was kind of shitty, they still had some innovative stuff that
The objective
I
stuff
think
it was
definitely
actually
pushed the
pretty
genre.
cool. The I do have quite good memories of like there's a pirate map and it's all about like, okay, we've got to get the coins out of the chests to then fire the cannons at each other. That was kind of interesting. Yeah.
I mean, just any objective is just better because like it just wasn't happening in Dota at all. It's all about team fights.
It was a necessary thing to throw into the game too, because they'd gotten rid of so many of the things that carried stakes. Like you're not fighting over minions anymore. You're not, fighting over the lanes nearly as hard. So they have to add in this other new thing that you can go and fight over, or else like it stagnates.
Well, that's the thing too, that it was because it's a Blizzard game, right? I feel like the term MOBA never fit Heroes of the Storm. It was more like those like Angel Arena type of custom games from Warcraft 3, where it was more like a brawler than a MOBA. So yeah, it did the stuff.
Another issue I always had with MOBAs is, so I played a lot of Heroes of New Earth and I played a lot of League. I played it in like beta and stuff. And I really liked top lane when it used to be like solo top, and I used to play a lot of jungle. Like jungle was my favorite thing, and that was because jungle was like very much like I'm gonna fuck the enemy jungler, and it was a very like one-on-one thing. I loved early jungling,
dirty.
and I loved early one-on-one laning. I couldn't fucking stand the team fights. That's when the game used to get super boring to me. Because I really liked it. Was just like that one-on-one, like we are just competing and we're just fucking with each other. That's what I found fun. Anything outside of that, I'm like, okay, this is dog shit. But jungle was so good for that, like sealing enemy camps, like knowing all the timers, knowing when you could be going for stuff, like the risk reward of it all. That was so much fun.
To go back to Terraria, Ziggy, if you ever want to get into it, but you don't want to dig through the dirt, just play with Quinn. That's all he ever does in his playthrough. Dig through the dirt. So you're gonna have plenty of dirt. Trust.
Get
It'll
a
be
dig
great.
slave. Just employ a dig slave.
Watch like 30 hours of that shit. Guy's still digging through dirt.
Hey, I mean,
Still watching.
who's the idiot? The person who's spending 30 hours digging through dirt, or the person who's watching someone spend 30 hours digging through dirt?
I'm not gonna lie. It's entertaining stuff. I'm not bashing.
How far did you get into it, Ziggy?
I can't remember how far I got years ago. I remember like fighting maybe some bosses and things like that. So I did some stuff, but
Okay.
I don't know. I just like booted it up the other day. I was like, oh yeah, I played for like half an hour. I'm like, oh, ting 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 ting, digging these little tiny pixels. The chat gave me some good tips. Like in addition to apparently you can get some like bombs and better pickaxes and stuff pretty fast if you know what you're doing. Apparently there's caves, so you don't have to dig. You can run into a cave, and then that skips a lot of the early digging. The cave tip was a good tip. That's a hot tip. So I don't know, maybe I'll give it another go at some point. Don't know if it's super my jam. Kind of in theory it is.
It might not be.
But I don't know, it just seems a little bit slow, but maybe it gets a lot better. It also
Makes
seems
you
really
feel better.
in-game.
I didn't dig it too much either. I played it around the time when it came out, and it was cool, but like I don't know. I couldn't get into it. But I do enjoy watching other people play it, so there's that.
I
But
had
myself, I'm like,
same
okay.
issue. A friend of mine was like obsessed with it. And he was constantly trying to get us to do duo, and I've played maybe like 20 hours of it duo with him. And every time I was only playing it just because it would stop him nagging me about playing it for like a month. And then another month would go by, and he'd be like, oh, we've got to play it. And it's just like, oh. But yeah, I could never get into it.
You're not friends anymore, are you?
Yeah, it's kind of
No,
funny
we're
to
still
me,
friends. It's just he was one of those guys. He was really into like roguelikes and stuff when like they first came up, and he was the guy who pushed me to play the first Risk of Rain. And he was always like, oh, we have to Risk of Rain 1, it's so good. And I was just like, oh, I can't be fucked. Because he would always recommend things I hated. And then when the first one came out, I'm like, yo, this is the shit, dude. Yeah. Risk of Rain 1 was good. And Risk of Rain 2 is also really good.
Like we were all here from like the beginning of PoE, and that was kind of a slugfest as well. So it kind of surprises me for the type of grinder, like we like grindy games, you know. So it kind of surprises me that you're not more into like a game like Terraria, because it really has a lot of the same features that PoE has.
Okay, there's a big difference between grinding literal dirt and killing monsters and getting loot popping out, right?
Right. I mean, but at the end of the day, I mean,
difference.
it's like you're trying to upgrade your character and everything. And it's kind of like you're doing it's whether or not it's like a block of dirt in front of you or it's a guy. I guess it depends on like how you view that experience.
I mean,
kind of lens.
The dirt doesn't fight back, I guess, apart from just being annoying and there.
Well, the sand does, though. The sand fights back.
It does, though. Yeah, that is true. Everything fights back. If it's not the dirt, it's the sand, it's the water, it's the lava, it's the
dart trap, boulder.
Yep.
Well, okay, this might confuse things. So I couldn't get into Terraria at all, but I loved the shit out of RuneScape. I would happily go fishing. I liked fishing in World of Warcraft. But Terraria is like...
Dude, you think you're safe fishing in Terraria? Oh my god! Today I fished up like the kraken, the literal kraken. I'm like just standing there fishing, and like blood god kraken like just destroyed me. Yeah,
fun.
OGs,
now I'm scared of
remember cutting trees and then the tree fucking gets out of the ground and starts attacking you in RuneScape? That was spooky.
Oh, I do remember that. Yes,
that was fucking spook.
We both experienced a thing.
No.
We both did the same thing.
Whoa!
If you had to, because you asked me like what would be a 10 out of 10 game. I don't think I would rate any game 10 out of 10, but if I had to, it would maybe actually be OG RuneScape. I think that's the closest I've come to a perfect game. It might have been when I was playing it, but that was my fucking shit. I don't know what I would change about that,
10
honestly.
out of 10s.
Don't listen to Tarke.
I never tried it.
Gameplay, really awful.
Well, no, but like, I'm curious what games you would give 10 out of 10. Because I don't know if I would give any, but if you had to force it, I would say it's probably OG RuneScape for me.
Yeah, most games have some problems. I don't, throw out too many 10 out of 10s.
Bastion is my 10 out of 10 game by Supergiant.
Both Golden Sun games are 10 out of 10. Maybe Baldur's Gate 1, but it's arguable.
Diablo 1.
A 10 out of 10?
10 out of 10.
Do you want to hear a really funny
Maybe not
story
these days,
about
but
Diablo 1?
back then, 100%. The experience you got from going into that dungeon, it was a unique thing.
Noogie, you're gonna cringe so hard at this. So when I first played Diablo 1, I hadn't really played any games like it before. And I was playing the wizard, and he has like a staff. And Fallen are short, and this is how my brain worked as a kid. I thought that, because I'd missed a couple times when I first attacked, I thought, oh, the reason why I'm missing is because they're too short for the animation. So I need a different weapon. Because, and I genuinely thought they had some kind of like weird height-based combat system. I was really young when I played that game, dude. And I was like, dude, the wizard is so dog shit, he can't kill Fallen, they're too short. And it was because like the attack animation and stuff, it looked like it was like going over them. So then I made like a knight or some shit, and then I was like, oh, this guy's OP, he can hit the Fallen, because he has a different attack swing. Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. The dumbest thing probably that I've ever done was actually in Golden Sun, which is my 10 out of 10. There's
what is
like
that game?
It's like the best game ever.
Wait, what is it called? Golden Sun Sand?
Golden Sun. Yeah.
Like a Game Boy game, isn't it?
It's a Game Boy game, yeah.
Oh.
But there was this huge tree that you would climb, and when you were climbing the tree, that you would have like platforms where you'd fight mobs, but there were holes in those platforms, and you had to like puzzle your way to get around the holes, because anytime you fell through the hole, it would like push you all the way down. And so I fucking struggled so hard to get up that fucking tree because I would always fall into those holes. And I finally made it to the top, and there was nothing at the top. and I was just losing my mind. And I actually played so much. This is when I was like 11. I played so much that I was almost twice the level in that zone, which was like basically a starting zone, compared to like what I was on another playthrough where I actually finished the game. And the way you would do it, because I couldn't progress, I was just like, well, I guess I'm just fucking farming on this tree forever because I don't know how to progress. And the way you would do it is you would go to the middle at the top and you would fall through the hole. But because I had such a bad experience, I didn't want to fall through the hole, so I couldn't progress for like actual months. So that was a pretty.
The
was a
era
dark
before
moment.
internet guides.
Yep. I remember even I didn't even figure it out in the end. I actually borrowed the game to my friend and he made it through it. And I was just like, what the fuck? How did you progress? So he's like, dude, you just fall through the hole. Like, duh. One huge hole in the middle at the top, you just jump through it.
It's a valuable life lesson there for
In
you.
the basement.
Sometimes you have to fall to succeed.
Yeah, it was
There's
some
something
sites you can only see from the top. Yes, quite.
there's something really special about like video game logic that only makes sense to the devs. Like early
No, it makes total sense.
Games are the worst for those.
point and clicks and stuff were really good for that, where it's just like, ah, yes, this is exactly what the players would do.
Well, it's like the old games for like Simon's Quest and shit. You gotta like walk up to the wall, crunch it, and
on the ladder.
it's just like, what?
I'm curious to hear about this monster train because I also
I had a
recently
few
got
of you.
into
You're
card games, so
Okay. Yeah, I've heard a few of you. Pretty keen on hearing a bit about it. The Monster Train action is taken off. It's going nuts. Everyone is giving it a go. They had a demo pre-release, which is like devs don't do that enough these days. I actually made a demo. I was like, oh shit, I like that. Everyone tried the demo and they're like, fuck yeah, super addicted to it. So I got Monster Train originally as because the devs were like, yo, you want to do a Monster Train? I'm like, yeah, well, I've been looking for a deck building roguelite.
looking for some money. Yeah, let's do it.
Money. But also, I had actually coincidentally been trying a bunch of games in the genre. Like I tried a bunch of like early access games and in the genre, and I was like, because I played this one game on stream randomly. And I played one run of it, and my deck that was like a poison deck in that game got hard countered by a boss. And I was like, fuck this game. And I uninstalled it and refunded it on Steam. I like rage quit that game so hard. So I was looking for other deck builders. Played a bunch, didn't really like much of them. And then they reached out with this thing. So yes, I did have a sponsorship. They paid for me to play 6 hours of the game. I have so far played, where's my Steam? It's about 70 hours of the game. So I've definitely
You're working on that back catalog invoice, yeah? Just gonna send them the bill for extra 60.
Send them the extra bill.
Yeah.
No. So, all right. Anyway, the game is Monster Train is like Slay the Spire, same genre. Very different in terms of gameplay, though. Effectively, you're the denizens of hell, and heaven have conquered you. They've taken over hell and frozen over. So hell's literally frozen over. Your job is to take a train with a burning pyre, the last like flame of hell, to reignite the flames of hell. So you're like, supposed to take this train down. So basically, it's like Slay the Spire, but in reverse because you're the spire, or you're the pyre, I guess. But you go down, and you and you go down to hell on train tracks on a hell train full of monsters. It's really fucking good though. So Slay the Spire is like well beheld as the like best in the genre as far as deck building roguelikes. If you're unfamiliar with deck builders, by the way, it's the idea that you they're not like Hearthstone or Magic, right? You don't buy packs and make a deck and then play games versus other people. These are typically single player games. Sometimes they're multiplayer though. And you build the deck throughout the course of a run of the game. So you start off with some basic cards, just like some basic monsters and a couple spells, depending on which clans you pick. And after each battle, you get to draft a couple cards, and you get extra cards acquired, and you refine your deck and come up with a build effectively throughout the course of that run. It gets better and better and better, and hopefully, if it's good enough, you're able to beat the final boss and win the game, and hopefully get a good score. So that's the concept of the genre. Something that I originally thought I wouldn't like after trying other card games, but gave it a go with a few games, Slay the Spire in particular. I was like, yeah, this is a banger. So Slay the Spire is like the best in the genre by many people's reckoning. Like that makes a lot of sense. It's really, really good. I like Monster Train a lot more than Slay the Spire personally now. It's a real
Why?
banger game. There's a few reasons. One is the upgrading system. So in Slay the Spire, you can upgrade cards, and they have like a better version of the card. So like this does more damage, or this thing's a bit cheaper, or this has some extra effect. In this game, it's got like a modular card upgrading system, and it's really, really important to winning runs. Where you say cards have two upgrade slots by default, and you might say, okay, I want to make this spell cheaper, and I want to make it like have more damage, or I want to make it so that every time I cast this card or every time I use this card, it comes back next turn guaranteed. Or I want to make it so that this card doesn't get discarded at the end of the turn, or you can do a whole bunch of different stuff. I want to give this creature multi-strike and a damage shield, and you get to combine all these different upgrades in interesting ways. Also, you play with monsters in this game where you like summon creatures rather than just having the single hero like in Slay the Spire. So there's a lot more interesting ways of building decks and potentially winning. You can, build around having very powerful creatures. You can build around have very tanky creatures. You can build spell combo decks. There's tons of different ways of kind of winning the game. Crazy combos come up with. I think the other thing is the fact that there's effectively 20 classes in the game because there's 5 clans and you pick 2 in order matters. So you got like 20 total classes as opposed to 4 in Slay the Spire, I think it is. So a lot more like total, I guess, things that you can do in it.
And like,
I'm ready.
What's the card variety like? Like, how different will your runs be? Like, your deck, sorry. Will you be seeing a lot of the same cards, or is it like a very big card pool, or?
There's not, like, on a clan-by-clan basis, there's not, like, a massive card pool. Like, you won't see the same cards every run, but you will definitely start to see, like, you're like, yeah, I know this card because I've had it in a few different builds. There's, because of the nature of, like, you're going to see different things and you're going to get different artifacts, which are like kind of powerful passive effects. I've found that I end up building very different decks each time. Even like I might make a spikes deck built around the spikes mechanic, and then in the future I might do another run with spikes. They'll end up being pretty different. You might kind of eventually start to see the same combos or come up with the same strategies and play them out, but they'll play out differently still. There's a fair bit of variety to it, run to run basis.
I've been watching some gameplay trying to decide, whether I want to drop the money on it and spend the time. And one of the things that struck me is as a fairly simple but kind of interesting departure from other games in the genre is that the train is, massive and multi-leveled. And so you've got these 3, is it 3 or 4? I think it's 3 that you can actually place units on. 3 different floors you can place units on before they get, so like the enemy units will come in on the bottom of the train, and then you have things happen there, and then they'll move up a floor, regardless of whether they killed your units or not. They'll move up a floor and then up again. And if they reach the very top floor, then they'll damage your effectively health bar. So it's sort of like a very, very weak layer of tower defense, thrown on top.
A little bit tower defense, yeah. Kind of.
I don't want to use those words too loosely, but
I get it. It's
an echo of it.
So is it kind of like you've got different lanes that you can play on?
One of the people that I was watching, Trump, he's usually a Hearthstone YouTuber and streamer, but he was playing the game a little bit. He had a strategy in one of his runs where you can apply a debuff to enemies called Spell Weakness that makes them take, for each stack, they take their spell damage multiplied again. So if they have 2 stacks, they take triple, 3 stacks, they take quadruple, that sort of thing. And his first floor, he had units that would apply spell weakness, and then his second floor he would like just tank enemies so that he could throw spells at them to kill them, that sort of thing.
That's cool. Hearthstone Trump, not the other one, is one of my favorite card game streamers. He's very good. I like him a lot. He's very cool. I used to watch a lot of him back in the day. So is it kind of like Gwent, where you've got like the melee lane and like the ranged lane and like the siege? Is it kind of like that with?
No, not really. I think like to call it a lane system is a little bit like it kind of is. It's more like
it's like stages.
Multi-layered, kind of gameplay, because creatures will enter from the bottom most typically, and then they'll fight your creatures that you have at the bottom, and then if they survive, they'll ascend.
And then new creatures come and fight your ones at the bottom, so you've got to like distribute them.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds cool.
They're trying to slay the spire you, so you're like weakening them and killing them before they get to the top of the spire, effectively.
Yeah.
In this case, your train and your pyre. I think like what's really satisfying about it though is it has pretty OP combos that you can pull together. So it's very satisfying when you kind of, especially when you accidentally discover them or come up with some sort of big brain strat on the fly. So like, what was it recently? It was like I accidentally stumbled upon the idea of like these two clans that I was like, I don't even know how you're supposed to play these clans together. It was like Melting Remnant and Awoken, for you guys who've actually played the game. I was like, how do you even play these together? And then I discovered, oh, hey, this clan has a stealth mechanic I can play around. I can stealth, and then the boss can't hit me while I'm stealth for 1 round. So I stacked like 20 stacks of stealth, so I get 20 rounds, and then every single round that the boss can't hit me, I attack them once with my creature that applies spell weakness, Octavian was talking about. All of a sudden, the boss takes 25 times damage from
good.
spells. Boss has like 1,200 hit points. I hit them with like a 50 damage spell, and it's like they take 1,800 damage. I'm like, oh my god, so good, so satisfying.
That feeling of, you know, that feeling of discovering something and that feeling of being powerful is a large part of the reason of why I play Path. You know, it's why I like these roguelikes, and it's why I like these games that are just basically a sandbox where you just take things and combine them, because you're going to naturally progress to a point where you feel kind of smart. You know, like in Noida, like I mentioned earlier, there's a little minecart that spawns at the start of every level, and I was stupid and didn't do the tutorial correctly. Like, it's a big glowing thing in the background that says press F to kick, and I just didn't read it the first time I went. And the second time I saw it and kicked the minecart, it fell down and landed on something's head. And even something that simple, I felt like, oh cool, I did a thing.
I'll definitely oh, go on.
I was just gonna say, there's a lot of overlap, I think, between like the joys of making an action RPG character build and having it come together over time, with the overlap with the idea of like deck builders and building your deck over time and coming up with the build at the end and being like, damn, that was a banger, or damn, that build really didn't work out. It's a lot of the same sort of feel, but condensed down into like an hour.
That's the thing. Me and Octavian play PoE for different reasons. He plays it to be strong. I played it to suck. Like, like that's why I fucking. It's always just a sap and whatnot. It's like, yeah, I just want to get destroyed, dude. The China race was amazing for exactly that reason.
Hey, you don't seem pretty strong.
I'm destroyed in this. Once you beat the game, you unlock like a covenant rank, and it goes up to 25 ranks. I'm only up to rank 10. I'm getting destroyed. My runs now, getting shredded.
I'll definitely have to check it out. Card games have always been one of my favorite genres, but I have the issue with monetization, and I'm very bad at spending money, so I tend to avoid them. But I've been having...
That's the best thing about deck builders.
Yeah,
there's like no pay to win.
How much is the game itself?
$25?
Oh yeah, no, I'll definitely have to buy it then. I've been having a lot of fun with Gwent, which I guess is to talk about Witcher again. Good fucking shit. And it's a very simple like move you can do, but when I realized you could do it, I was like, oh shit. There's a card in that game called Decoy, where you can bounce a card off the board back into your hand, and there are these spells called medics, where they will like resurrect things from your discard pile. And I was like, I don't know, how can I get past this board? And someone kind of ruined it. There was that thing when chat says something helpful, and like, oh shit. But he's like, what if you decoyed the medic? And suddenly I was like, oh, I could start endlessly chaining medics and resurrecting my entire thing. And I had cards which doubled in strength if there were duplicates of them on the board. So suddenly I was like, oh, I can go like all in on the first round, throw my combo, then use a medic and a decoy to resurrect my combo. And I've managed to put in like 200 hours into Hearthstone Battlegrounds in like a month. And that's surprisingly really good. I'd never played an auto chess game before, and that's a lot of fun. And it's completely free, which is great.
Didn't they do a thing recently where you pay a subscription, and if you pay for it, then you get more options at the start of the round?
Yeah, so that was one thing which is kind of fucky. So the way it works is there are, I don't know how many total heroes there are, but there are different heroes, and they have like a special ability. It doesn't affect what cards you get, but like it changes something how it works. And if you pay, I can't remember how much it was in dollars, or you pay 2,500 gold in game, which isn't that extreme. You then get like an extra character added to your like early selection. It's like 16 quid or something. And then every time a new like expansion comes out, you need to like do it against. It's like a battle pass kind of a system. So it's kind of pay to win in the fact that you get to have like more heroes to pick between, because obviously some heroes will be stronger than others with like their class ability. But one thing which is quite funny about it is they had a system where they introduced 3 new heroes recently, and they were in like beta, and people who'd bought this pass could access them early. And of the 3 heroes, 2 of them were shit. So people who didn't have it actually had like better odds, because you don't want the bad heroes like in your roster pool. Yeah, it's fun. It's really good. Would recommend. I tried playing the Gwent standalone card game on my phone, but that was kind of weird. It's kind of fun, but the standalone Gwent changes how the game fundamentally plays from Witcher Gwent. So Witcher Gwent has 3 lanes, and you draw 10 cards at the start, and that's it. Whereas the standalone, there's only 2 lanes instead of 3, which is quite a big deal. And then you draw 3 cards every round. So the thing which made Gwent really interesting is it's the most resource management kind of card game I've ever played before. Because a lot of it's kind of like, there's 3 rounds, best of 3, so if you win 2 rounds, you win. You'll purposely like pass around to your opponent, so they like overextend on the board in cards. So it's kind of like, if I can get them to play their strongest cards in the first round, then I'll pass because I'll have an advantage in the next 2. And that makes it very interesting, because usually it's a case of have a good deck, try and draw the good cards, and like play through your deck that way. And it changes the fundamentals a lot, which I really liked. But I don't know if there's not many people playing it now, but I think it's the standalone version's kind of dead. I was playing it on mobile, and it was like kind of okay, but I just kept going against the same people over and over again. And because I'd only just like installed it, I was at the shit tier rank. So people who didn't know what the fuck they would like, you know, when there's like the matchmaking puts you against people who don't know what they're doing. And I played for like 2 hours, and I was like, I don't know if I'm being put against bots, like AI, or if these people are just really fucking bad. But it was painful, like how bad the options were. Like, you would very briefly summarize how it works is when you play a card, it's got like points, and the points are the strength. Whoever has the most points wins the round. So let's say I have a card worth 15 points. I play 15 points. If the opponent wants to win, he's got to play more than 15 total. So sometimes what you would do is you play a big card and pass. So if the opponent wanted to win that round, they'd have to play like 2 or 3 cards to overtake you. I was being put against people who they didn't know what passing was. So if I pass with like point advantage, instead of them playing like an extra card to win the round, they just pass as well, because it's like, oh, if he passed, I must pass. And I won like 5 games in a row just doing that. And it was like, the fuck
so
is
you're
this?
beating up noobs that didn't know how to play the game?
Basically, yeah. And it's I don't know. Maybe
Like,
it's just a case of I was in like a weird bracket, but I played for like 3 or 4 hours and I'd lost 1 game. And it was just like, this isn't fun, because I've only lost 1 game in 4 hours. So, yeah.
I had a similar experience in playing what's it called, Magic the Gathering. I mean, it's just the nature of going into a game where you have like some experience somewhere else, you know, and you go into a matchmaking scenario. You're just way better, and then you end up like finally you find your bracket and you start having the 50-50 games again.
I have that experience in every game I play, on every bracket.
Yeah.
He's just
Okay.
That's one thing which has actually been really satisfying about playing Hearthstone Battlegrounds is I'm like, oh no, I'm in my bracket now after playing it for like a month or something. I've hit this kind of like brick wall at like 8k rating. Apparently, like Crip says that 8k is kind of like, that's where people are good. And anyone who goes past that's just playing like the most like meta degenerate strategy. And I get to like 8.5k, and then I lose like 500 to 1,000 rating. I get back up to 8k, I push it up a bit, and every time I get close to 9k, I then like drop back down. So I'm like, okay, this feels good. And I've got like I don't know. I think I've got like a 60% win rate, but the way the rating works in that game is so fucky. So it's out. There's 8 people you're against. If you get first place, you'll win anywhere between like 70 to 100 points. if you get 4th place, you shouldn't lose points. It's kind of like if you get in the top 4, you don't lose. If you get in the bottom 4, you lose. But because it's like of 8, there's 8 people, so it's like 4 fights going on at once. If theoretically 3 fights lose at the same time, because everyone lost at the same time, everyone loses less or everyone wins less. So sometimes you'll get like chain 3rd and 4th place and only win like 10 points. And then other times you get like 5th or 6th and you lose like 50. So the amount you lose is so much steeper than the amount you gain. You need to win so many more matches to climb. It's really
You
weird.
have 60% win rate. Is it what's a win?
Being in top 4. But you only you only realistically gain points if you're in the top 2. So
Yes,
if you
okay.
get a 3rd or a 4th place, it's kind of like, oh, you gained like 5 points. It's really fucky. And it's still a card game and it's still RNG. And there's RNG on like the roster picks. It's really weird. Yeah. Has there been any ARPG card game hybrids? Because it feels like that should be a thing.
Hand of Fate?
The paper Diablo game? Oh yeah, Hand of Fate kind of.
Hand of Fate wasn't really so much a hybrid as much as 2 games that were like linked. You know?
Yeah.
Like there was sort of the card game portion of it, and then there was the portion where you went into the combat, which wasn't really ARPG combat, come to think of it. Yeah. It's the closest thing I can think of, though. It was a good game.
I think Book of Demons was like a Diablo 1 love letter that had some card stuff going on as well, but not really like a card game. Still
Like
an
it just
RPG.
used the facade of card game as a like gear system.
Yeah. It was a good game though.
Because I have the issue that I love card games so much, but it's just so rare that you find card games with good monetization. Because it's just so rampant to be abused.
It's like, yeah, it's good to get into deck builders if you kind of like the card thing. Don't play Retropolis though. That game is infuriating. That's the other game I've been playing recently.
What's that?
It's a rat game. Raiz, you might like this one. You pick a rat leader of different types. You might be like the general rat, like he's like a soldier, or you might be like a navigator rat who's like an explorer. And then you got to like play cheese cards to get gold, and you got to play pottery cards to like get more gold, and then you got to spend the gold to buy cards and place little rat soldiers on your walls, and you got to build houses to get more ratizens, which are the citizens, but they're rats. And then you got to turn them into little rat soldiers, turn the ratizens into rat soldiers, and then you get attacked by ferrets, and the ferrets eat rats' faces off, and then they destroy your building, and then you rage, and then you get really angry because the game's stupid. It's a real-time card game. Like it's an RTS.
Huh.
Not
Like,
realistic. Rats would never spend the cheese. Get everything for free and get a rat it.
True.
Yeah.
It's the only time I've ever played like a real-time card game. Very stressful. It's like
Is it against other players or AI or something?
Just single player against like waves of enemies. It's like do you remember those old games that were like Defend the Castle? I think was literally the name of one of the Flash games. And you'd like hire soldiers and build things to shoot the enemies that tried to destroy your castle. It's basically that, but with like cards, and you deck build as you go and try and come up with like some deck combo that can win. I've won precisely once in like 15 hours. The game is fucking hard.
And they're rats.
So infuriating. I've never been like raged so much at a game that every time I fail in Retropolis, I like am really angry. But then I like want to play again. So I've never enjoyed a game so much that makes me rage. Maybe this is what people like MOBAs, I guess.
Yeah, you never got into League of Legends, did you?
Nah, I've never really been into super into MOBAs. At least I'm raging just by myself in a single player game, so it's fine. I'm not like
hurt anyone with the rats.
Experience. Yep. Yeah. No, it's actually kind of good, but it's infuriating.
Would this be a fair assessment, Octavian? I kind of imagine you as a kid just like living on those like Flash game websites.
I would play them sometimes with my friends at the library, but we'd usually go there to play Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
Because I am just, the crystallized embodiment of nerd shoved into a human being, apparently.
That's a fair assessment, to be honest.
that or like, I don't know, when I was like 10, we had a big fallen tree in the backyard and I'd run up and down it with a stick and hit imaginary enemies. That, that was my video games growing up.
Screw World of Warcraft. We need that.
I had a big old log and some sticks, man. Some of them looked like guns, some of the sticks.
He's talking about guns.
Talking about guns again.
Yeah, New York guy.
I had a neighbor named Spike, and we'd get into trouble in the backyard. I'm not even kidding. That's a real thing.
I still find it weird that people called their kids Spike. I don't. Apologies to any Spikes in the chat. I feel like that's a very American thing.
I think I got you beat though, Octavian. Me and my brother, when we were young, we used to play Fallout 2 in the backyard with like, toy weapons and armor and stuff like that. We'd like put hockey guards on and pretend it was like armor, increase armor class. But here's the real kicker. Fallout 2 is a turn-based game. We played turn-based out in the backyard in person, in real life. So we'd have a certain amount of action points and be like, you can make 2 attacks with your action points, brother.
Did you have to like
you can move 5 steps with your 5 action points?
Sounds good. I know, should have been pretty realistic as well, playing in Australia. Like, Fallout Australia, it's the same thing, isn't it? It's just post-apocalyptic. Yeah.
It works, I guess. Yeah. Sure. It was inspired by Mad Max, which was set in Australia, so not too far off the truth.
Did you walk through the desert until you encountered like a scorpion and then stop?
and then you engage turn-based combat.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh god.
That's weird. I remember I played through both of the Fallout games, but I don't remember a second of it. Like, not at all.
Oh my god.
Wasn't there a thing with like a guy turning people into machines or something?
Mutants, I thought it was.
Mutants. Yeah.
I don't remember any of it.
The first Fallout game was like okay. It was too serious. Took itself too seriously. Second Fallout game, that you asked what would be some of my 10 out of 10 games. Probably second Fallout was like one of my 10 out of 10 games.
Yeah, I would agree.
Second Fallout was like they really nailed it.
Yup.
Knights of the Old Republic is my 10 out of 10 game. That was good.
The first one?
Yeah, I liked that.
Careful, Ziggy. That's a Star War.
I mean,
the moment he mentioned it.
To be fair, Jedi Academy is a pretty 10 out of 10 game. If you include the multiplayer, I'd say 10 out of 10.
There was some really good Star Wars games, and then it just kind of all went downhill.
I played the game where you fly a lot.
That could be.
No. It's like, there's like a Star Wars.
Do you mean the original Battlefield, which used to have a lot of like spaceship combat?
What?
Flight Simulator 2000.
The original Battlefield is a fucking good game.
Yes,
that was a good game.
It actually was. What would your take be, Ziggy, on Fallout 2 and then Fallout 3? I guess that is. Are they? Was it the Fallout 3?
Yeah, New Vegas was
the
good.
New Vegas.
New Vegas was good.
Yeah, it was technically it was Fallout 1, 2, Fallout Tactics, Brotherhood of Steel, Fallout Brotherhood of Steel on console, which was a completely different game. It was basically a reskin Baldur's Gate. It was really bad.
I know what you're talking about. Rogue Squadron, Noogie.
Got it?
Wait, what? Oh, okay.
Rogue Squadron. No? That was the flying around?
I don't know.
That game was so sick.
I was just hoping that I would say anything, and then I would remember. I don't remember that. Let me see.
Did you like Wastelanders, Ziggy? Have you played any of it?
Yeah, I played Wasteland, and the first bit was like okay, and then it really started to fall apart by the midpoint. It was not very good. I didn't get through it in the end, which is a shame because it's supposed to be like the Wasteland original game was like the precursor, the spiritual father of Fallout, and then it's like okay, cool, I'll play this then, but it's not Fallout. It wasn't a great game. If you want to find like a game that's like classic Fallout 1 and 2, probably the best like new game by an indie dev that captures that is Atom RPG. It's a Russian game. It's got all English translations and everything, but it's made by a Russian dev. It's a little bit janky, but it's the closest capturing of the original Fallout games that I've ever played. Very creative game. The devs have like thought of a ton of different things that you might try and do, and it has that exact same Fallout gameplay. Even like the menus and stuff look really similar. I remember I had this quest where I was supposed to go into like a vault basically and get some things for some bandity type people, and then come back out, and I was supposed to be able to keep everything else that I got in there, you know, once I gave them the thing that they sent me in there for. So I'm like, oh yeah, they're probably going to betray me. So what I'll do is I'll stash all the. Well, no, I go out. I didn't figure that out at the time. I go out, they betray me. They, you know, kick my ass, kill me, and take all my stuff. So I'm like, okay, load, because I died. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to outsmart these fuckers. I'm going to stash all of the stuff in like a crate somewhere inside the thing. I'm going to go give them the item and be like, yeah, no, I didn't find anything else. And then I'll, you know, be like, okay, then I'll come back later and get my items. They're like, this guy's trying to screw us. He's stashed all the good stuff inside somewhere. Get him, kill him. And I'm like, wait, what the fuck? How did you know? The game knew, man. The game outsmarted me. It played me. The devs knew. And I was like, oh my God. That's when I realized, like, damn, this game has a lot going on in it. Very clever.
It's
This
really
is
cool when
Atom
something like that
RPG.
happens.
Yeah, I've never heard anyone talk about this game or mention it. But it's legitimately like Fallout 2. It's even got the same sort of like goofy, stupid humor that Fallout 2 had, which was one of the like things that I thought they really like nailed from moving from Fallout 1 to 2 was like the game got funny.
The first time you went in with like a 0 int dude was like a really funny experience.
Yeah. Yeah, the low end playthroughs in that game were like actually a real thing. It was fully supported, and there was like a whole bunch of unique situations and things that could happen. Some even positive things would come out of it. Some people would like treat you well because, you know, they thought you were a lovable idiot.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
That was one thing I found kind of disappointing about Outer Worlds when I played it. It was really refreshing playing a game which had like a cool dialogue system, but then it just became really apparent that it was pretty like one note or kind of like one dimensional, and it was just kind of they had a really weird system where it's like there were dialogue checks based on your skills, but the skills had really weird overlap, so that it's like if you had a high int build, int would also affect like crit damage and stuff, so you couldn't really make like a pure build. Even if you tried to go like full stupid, you ended up like inadvertently getting a bunch of stuff which boost like stealth boosted your like hacking skill, so like you couldn't ever truly specialize in just one thing. If you want to get like full RP, you'd always end up having like a well-rounded character. But yeah, I think that's one thing that old games did very well, where you could just be like, I'm just going to go full stupid and just have to accept the fact that I've screwed it up, you know.
I look forward to seeing their next game.
Yeah.
Outer Worlds was like, yeah, this was an okay game. Like, they have potential. Like, yeah, it captures a little bit of like the New Vegas charm, but it's like cool world and stuff, but it's not quite there. But their next game could be a banger if they.
No, I agree. I think it was a good framework. I think one thing which could be a fun thing to wrap up on, since we've kind of had a bit of like a nostalgic things that was like, oh, this game was great. If we just like went through, what was a game that everyone loved that you just couldn't? You just like, no.
Every game.
That everyone else loved that we didn't like.
Yeah, like we kind of touched on a bit with like not being able to get into Terraria or something, but like a game that is like universally praised. You're just like, yeah.
League of Legends.
I mean, that's probably Witcher. What was that?
League of Legends. That's the only thing.
That's not a controversial thing because there's so many people just don't.
Yeah,
like
it's
outside of
polarizing.
League of Legends though. It's like so polarizing. It's not like universally loved. It's like this is just like League of Legends fans like League of Legends. No one's gonna hate you for not liking League of Legends.
Torchlight.
Yeah, I didn't like Torchlight either.
I thought Torchlight was
Maybe on that
okay. It had I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 that had this system, but you could get like the equivalent of gems from killing the bosses. And it's like the first boss, it was like an eye, and it gave you flat damage reduction. So if you're playing on the harder difficulty, you just like spam the fuck out the first boss to get a rare drop rate, and then sock it into all of your gear. And that burnt me out on it really hard.
I know. The first Neverwinter Nights. Everybody fucking loved that game, and I hated it.
All right, there you go. Now
Yeah.
you're getting the spicy takes out. Neverwinter was a sick game. How dare you?
I'm saving my one for last.
I was waiting
That's
for it
spicy.
forever, dude. I waited for Neverwinter Nights so long, and I just couldn't wait, and I kept building up, and the hype was too real, and then it was nothing like Baldur's Gate, so I didn't like it.
Aw.
Yep.
So good though.
The next ones were a lot better though, for sure. And something more modern than Divinity, yeah. Because I love CRPGs, like I'm all about that, and I just could not get into Divinity. Even though
One or
everybody
two?
loved it. Both, either. Which is
Oh.
why I fucking hate that instead of having Baldur's Gate 3, we're gonna have Divinity 3. Fuck that. I'm
Wait, what?
so angry about it. Yeah, it's nothing like Baldur's Gate. It's
It
just
does
Divinity,
look a lot
but
like
3.
Divinity. Yeah.
A lot?
Yeah.
It's the same
Oh.
thing.
I mean, it's the same devs, so yeah.
It's the same thing. So yeah, I hate it.
It does look like a new Divinity game. You're wrong. It looks exactly.
But what about
like
the
Divinity.
gameplay though?
I mean, right now they're using assets from Divinity because they haven't like made the new assets from some of the early footage they've shown. So it'll look probably a lot different by the time it comes out, but the gameplay is very Divinity. I think you're right.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, it does look exactly like Divinity.
Yeah, buddy.
I was
Now look at
looking at
fucking
it,
Baldur's
okay.
Gate 2. How Baldur's Gate 2 and what? Like I understand that it's an old game, but goddamn. So yeah, I'm very upset about that. Upsetty spaghetti.
What about
I think
you,
my
Noogie?
spiciest.
Oh, sorry,
no,
go on,
you go
Ziggy.
ahead.
No, go on.
All right,
I'll go.
yeah, Noogie, you sit back, mate. You wait your turn. I think my spiciest is probably Witcher 3 because I'd say that's like pretty well beloved by many, and it's like a weird one. It's controversial even within myself because I freaking love I love everything that I know of the universe. You know, I enjoyed the show. Like I've loved the stories I've heard about the world. I like all the characters. I fucking love the soundtrack. Soundtrack's so good. But I don't know, man. I played like 5 to 10 hours of the gameplay and I just couldn't get into it. I was like, nah. I never went back. I felt zero compulsion to boot it up again.
I
So,
would
grab me.
recommend trying the second one. I think the second one has the strongest opening of any video game I've ever played. It opens like in the middle of this massive, like a war is about to happen, and you're walking through these camps, and you know how a lot of video games, it's like, oh, this is a battlefield, but it doesn't feel like it? It genuinely like feels like a battlefield. And you're walking through it, and at one point you climb up through like a sieging tower, and it's like, oh shit, it feels like so good. The atmosphere was great for that. And also Flotsam had the first like major town you're in the forest had a similar vibe. But,
Didn't you say the combat was really bad though?
it was...
I haven't played number 2.
The combat was good, the bosses were bad. Like, there were like 3 or 4 major boss fights in the entire... To give you a brief example, the final boss is a dragon. And I had to have like... I was playing on like, the hardest difficulty or something. And I had maybe like 5 or 6 attempts on the final boss. But my first try, I accidentally bugged the boss. And I found like an invulnerability thing I could do in the first phase. I replicated it in every single fight. If you run at its left shoulder and you just spam attacks, any attack it does, the animation glitches and it just lifts your character up and down off the ground, but you take no damage. So I was just like, okay, cheese the first phase, get into the second phase, and then it was like, I actually have to fight the boss. But they had a very weird way of doing their bosses. It's kind of like, when you're designing bosses in those games, I think there are 2 ways of doing it. The first way is a boss has like set mechanics that are on a timer. So it's like, it will do the ball attack or the beam attack every 2 or 3 minutes. Or you'll have a boss, and the way that the boss works is it's got 5 different abilities that it rotates between, and there's some sort of like timer in between them, stopping them from just like chaining them, but it's random. So it's like you learn the things and you read the mechanics. The way the boss fights in Witcher 2 work is they have a bunch of random abilities with no cooldown between them, and they can just chain them. There's a boss that you fight halfway through the game, and it has attack where it says artillery and a bunch of arrows fire from the sky, and the one where it says trebuchet and siege engines. I got stuck in a phase where it was just rotating between artillery, archers, artillery archers, and there was just like a minute of I cannot attack. I'm just having to run away from endless fucking arrows and siege things. And the boss had so much screen shake that when it walked, it was like someone was literally like picking up my screen and jumping with it. So I couldn't see shit. It was so painful. But yeah, good game, bad bosses. Have you thought of what your one is yet, Nuggy?
I love all games.
Okay.
I'm sitting here. I'm like, no, I'm serious. I'm going through like lists of like top games ever, and I'm like, I like this game, that game, that game, that game. Oh, I remember that game. Oh, that game was cool. And like now, I fell over like a game called Sacrifice. Anyone played that?
It sounds familiar. I can't recall it though. I think I know the name.
You're like a little minion, and you control like a bunch of dudes, and you have to like manage the mood of like a bunch of different gods and take them down and like play them against each other, and then you like. So if you help one guy, you get his minions, and if you do, and then you have to fight the other guy. And so depending on who you help, you like build up a certain type of army.
There's like a pantheon of gods, and you're like you're on a
yeah. And they're all pissed off all the time.
Yeah. No, that was cool.
It was really good.
You gotta be fucking high to play this game, man. I'm looking at the gameplay. This shit is crazy.
Dude, it was a great game. I loved it. Oh my god.
What's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. I find good things in almost all games. It's just I don't know. It's really hard for me to find bad games. I can always find something I like. So I don't have anything. I really thought I would find one, but I can't.
The game
There's probably something under there
that I really hate, and I have this rant about once a month on stream, and it's the kind of thing that people genuinely like so watch my stream over. I cannot stand Skyrim. I think Skyrim is one of the worst games ever fucking made, and people who say that Skyrim is a good game are lying. Skyrim is at best average. It doesn't excel in any one thing.
Yeah, but average is very different from worst ever.
Okay,
What the...
it's the way people play. I would say that Skyrim is realistically, it is a 6 out of 10 game. Realistically, it's 6 out of 10.
Mods.
6 out of 10.
Yeah, people only have fun with it because of mods.
Yeah,
what? I never even played with mods.
It's exceptionally average. None of the story stuff is memorable. The combat system was trash. The item system was trash. There's like nothing genuinely like oh, this was so good.
Okay,
the selling point of the game were dragons. Dragons were the worst part because the dragon fights were trash.
What?
The dragon fights were so bad.
Dragons
so
are pretty.
what?
They fly around you. You wait to shoot them with your bow. Then they land for a bit. Then you like it. They were really disappointing.
I was more impressionable in 2011. That's what it came.
I like that fight with the Thomas the Tank Engine, and then more of them come, and then the bears are attacking too. That one's good.
That doesn't sound like the Skyrim.
I've seen that one. It was fun.
I think that was a mod.
Because it's like, and like it's the thing, like people who love people who like adore Elder Scrolls wouldn't say it wasn't that good of an Elder Scrolls game. My first Elder Scrolls game was Oblivion, and I adored Oblivion. I had like thousands of hours on the game. I then later went back and played Morrowind. Morrowind is a better game than Oblivion, but I prefer Oblivion because it was my first one. I have a bias there. I
played both of those, and I like Skyrim better.
Oh god, really? I'm really surprised because you're usually very much like, oh, I like the nitty gritty, I like this, like that. Skyrim dumbs
I don't know. It's
down
just got.
everything.
I remember. Oh, actually, I think was it. I like exploration. Actually, no, I'm not sure. I liked exploring in all of them. It was just fun. Like the exploration part in all of them, going down the caves and everything. It's like all the Skyrim games are just good. Oh, not Skyrim, Elder Scrolls.
Oh no, there's Skyrim games now.
Dude, I don't know.
What's wrong with this generation?
Dude, I mean, I enjoy jumping up and down to generate more, athletics or whatever. I mean, I can find enjoyment in that in a game.
They didn't even have that in Skyrim. That was Oblivion.
What? No, I was definitely stabbing someone in the back for at least an hour. I remember that.
Yes, you might have been stabbing, but you weren't jumping up and down because
but I was definitely stabbing.
That was a big thing in Oblivion, like spamming jump, and so you could like jump fucking 30 feet in the air because you had so much agility.
That was the best thing in Oblivion. Like jumping roof.
I will say I missed that part in Skyrim that I couldn't jump.
Like Skyrim,
Yeah.
you have to admit the guilds in Skyrim were terrible. I think that was the most disappointing thing for me because the guilds are my favorite part of Oblivion.
But the thing is, I didn't really bother with any of that in Oblivion and Morrowind. The first time I experienced it was Skyrim.
Oh.
I haven't
Who
played
even plays
the other
quests?
ones.
No one- Who plays quests in those games and you just wander around hours aimlessly? That's how you play those games.
Oh, dude, there's like snow, and I'm like in the snowy bit, and then like, oh, there's like more snow, and there's a giant mountain in the middle of the map, which makes the mountain kind of like awkward to traverse around, and oh, there's some snow, and there are some undead enemies in the crypts, and all the crypts look the same, and they all have the same undead enemy models, and oh, look, it's a dragon fight. This is fun.
I would say it got very repetitive, all the dungeons. They're always the same.
Yeah.
I would, at that point, I agree to. There could have been more done there. It was a very big world with a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah. I think that Skyrim
Yeah,
was also responsible for that, like, you know how I said earlier, like, Witcher 2 was very obviously a victim of the year it came out? That, like, Skyrim started that trend of we're just gonna have really big maps with nothing really in them, and go to all the objectives, like, get
Right.
into the watchtower, and I feel like it just, like, set up a lot
I
of
would
really
play
bad
the
trends.
Assassin's Creed and Skyrim for the Watchtower stuff in particular.
Well, no, because
Like-
that was the thing. Like, Assassin's Creed took that system and was like, "Oh, this is the thing," and they just boiled it down. Because Ubisoft just
Man,
makes
why
the
are they
same
doing
game
this?
every year.
I mean, yeah, I won't contest you on that point. That is kind of the point I was making.
but
Assassin's
next
Assassin's
time,
Creed.
it's Vikings.
Yeah. Assassin's Creed is a really good example of a game that, when that first came out, I'm like, this is the best game ever. And then the more I played it, I'm like, this is the most repetitive piece of shit I've ever fucking... Like, every
Yes.
minute that I played it, I hated it. I was like, I went from 10 out of 10 to like, oh my god. And the fucking, Desmond Delton, whatever his name was. Like, yeah, so you're doing this cool, like, assassin shit, but if you can stop having fun, you need to be a random dude in a room for a bit.
Like, some people love those games where you just have a ton of shit to do on the map. I've been playing Far Cry Primal on consoles, like chill out game with out in the lounge room lately, and it's exactly the same formula. It's like you run around the maps and you capture a camp, and then you pick up this blue rock with a handprint on it, and it's like the dumbest thing. But I'm like, hey, some people love this. Sure, go for it. I just like the fact that you like hunting tigers and shit in that game. The game's fun.
I played a bit of that, and I liked it just for the, like, oh, this is kind of a cool setting. It was fun for the setting.
Yeah.
Did you play
you're like
Horizon
caveman
Zero
and you hunt
Dawn?
mammoths. A bit, yeah.
That game I really
Yeah, that's
liked.
pretty cool.
And that had kind of like...
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
The way that the watchtowers worked in that game is there are giant robotic giraffes, and you climb up the giant robotic giraffes, and that's how you, like, scan the areas. I think that's one of the best games I've played in a long time. Really looking forward to the sequel to that. Yeah.
Let's find out Octavian's hot take before he falls asleep.
Didn't I give it already? I haven't.
Did you?
I
What was your spicy take? No?
thought I had. I mean, I had another one. I've
Go
thought
on.
of another one, which is I like
Okay.
roguelikes a lot, and I've been playing things like Hades and Noida and all that on stream. And pretty much every time people suggest Binding of Isaac, and I tried it for a while and just couldn't get into it.
Same,
Um,
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Mm.
a large part of it, and I know like this is purposeful. This isn't a criticism of the game. It's just a subjective thing. A large part of it is I don't want to play as a crying baby who fights shit. Like I just don't. Like it just makes me uncomfortable. I know it's supposed to. It's doing its job. I don't want to spend my time
I
uncomfortable.
agree. I'm already that in real life. I don't play video games to, I play it to
Like,
get
I'm-
away.
I'm gonna go play as, badass Marauder man who slam ground and make enemy die more. Like I don't want to play as that. I get it's a purposeful decision. Again, it's not a direct criticism of the game. It's just I don't want to do that.
Why do you hate babies?
I do. Yeah. They're
David's a
terrible.
baby hater.
Yep.
Octavian
Yeah.
hates babies and loves guns.
Yeah.
And
Good
just
thing
to
about
clarify,
episode title.
I just need to clarify for that one 50-year-old in the chat that said that Raiz doesn't like CRPGs, he just likes Baldur's Gate. Okay, Dungeon Siege, Temple of the Elemental Evil. Okay, Icewind Dale,
This man is triggered.
Other Neverwinter Nights. Just not the first one. All right. Unbelievable. Fuck that guy.
Absolutely told.
Hmm.
Look at it. Firing off those names. Spicy.
I'll actually say one thing. I tried playing Baldur's Gate. I think I just played it, like tried it way too late because I never actually got to. I was never told that like, it was a thing back in my day, so I never experienced it. So I actually never played it.
That's
I
fair.
played it for like a few hours and then I got bored.
Listen, Dungeon Siege 1 is a CRPG. Dungeon Siege 2, you can argue it's an ARPG, but it's a mix. Okay, don't give me that shit. But I do prefer 2 over 1. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, boy.
Dungeon Siege 2, one of the best games of all time. Too bad the balance was off.
If anyone watching this, either on Twitch or later on YouTube, have any disputes over this, please do hit up Raiz in his DMs. He will happily continue this conversation.
See, but the thing is, I don't like a lot of games, but I can still think they're good. Like I played Skyrim for like 10 hours and I was like, this shit is just not for me. But I can appreciate it as like a good game. I wouldn't say it's the worst thing ever, Tarke. Did you see
that
those trains
was
flying?
me exaggerating. It was very much a 6 out of 10 game. It's nowhere near as good as the glory that is Witcher 1.
6 out of 10?
At best.
Yeah.
At best.
Then that's Witcher 1.
No! Witcher 1 is a 7.5. We established.
We agreed on 6.
No, Skyrim is a 6 out of 10.
No. You said Witcher's a 6.
No, I said 8, and Ziggy took me down to a 7. I said, no, fuck this.
And then you realized it's 6.
7.5.
Stubborn.
End it, Tarke. I need to go to bed.
But yeah, so I'd like to thank everyone for coming on. We've got the new league being announced on the 2nd, and Ziggy is going to be doing a very cool thing. If you want to plug that very quickly before we finish up.
Oh yeah, just the hour of lore, like the first reveal. We'll be showing like all the new stuff, and then half hour in, so after half an hour, I guess, after the reveal, Chris is going to come on my stream for some Q&A action, so we can hit him with all the burning, hot, spicy, moist questions right as they're fresh on our minds from seeing the trailer and the reveal and all that sort of stuff. So we'll go over everything real quick, and we'll get Chris on and ask a bunch of questions.
I don't think...
spam him with memes. That's the time.
I don't think I've ever been on mic with you in any situation, be it a podcast, a race cast, whatever, and you haven't said moist at some point in the discussion.
I hit my quota. I realized I hadn't said it.
Good job.
So I did the quota.
Moist
quota achieved.
I think the best thing about this is Ziggy already gets a lot of uptime. Whenever there's a league announced, everyone on Twitch is watching the Ziggy video. But now it's going to be everyone watching the Ziggy video to everyone watching the Ziggy stream. You're going to get your face is going to get a lot of coverage. It's going to be good.
I'm kind of like bummed out in a way because my ritual the last few leagues has been I don't stream when the reveal's happening because I love watching everyone else's reactions because, you know, I've already kind of had that spoiled myself, like that moment of hype of everyone kind of seeing the new stuff for the first time. It's like a worthy trade-off, don't get me wrong. I really enjoy being able to make the videos and have a little press interview with Chris and everything. But I love watching everyone else's reactions, and yes, I love watching people watch my videos and comment on it. Especially Raiz's one. I like watching your stream with my video watching. So.
Okay. I appreciate that.
That's good. But I won't get to do it this time. I'll go back and watch the VODs, I guess. Sad face. But QA, sick.
Well, in that case, we'll see you all chat again after the new league has been announced. So yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
Bye.
Which one sucks?
Just all of you. Everyone but Raiz. Yeah.
What did I do? I was nice for once.
You were very nice today.
When the podcast started, I was like 8 ciders in, so that's probably why.
That's
8 ciders. Wait, what kind of?
I was just fucking.
I did see you having a couple of sips during the thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because you said that we would do spoilers or predictions for the new.
Yeah, we didn't get around to that. No.
My poker face over.
Oh,
well moderated once again.
Fuck you. We finished the outro. It only took us like 2 hours, but we finished the intro, you know. We got
I've
that.
got I got some hot Chinese food in the kitchen over there, and I
No,
have
no,
not
you've got
eaten.
some cold
like-
Chinese food in the kitchen, Octavian.
It's cold.
Yeah.
It's over there though, and I haven't eaten in like 8 hours. So I'm gonna go stuff that in my face hole.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to bed as well.
No,
3 a.m. Good night, guys. Thanks very much. It was fun.
Night.